The following is a presentation of the ForceCenter podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the ForceCenter podcast feed, and this episode is one of our deep dives, our Bacta Tanks of Talk. We are going to slosh around in there and discuss the Star Wars novel Shadow of the Sith. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
I'm Ken Napzok. This is a highly anticipated, dare I say, hotly anticipated book leading up to its release, and now it's out, and we've had a couple weeks to sit with it, and that's when we like to sit down with all of you and discuss what we just read.
That's right. We're very excited to get into it. And you're right. This has been really anticipated just by the cover. It's got Luke, it's got Lando, it's got scary mask person that we get to learn all about. So we're very excited to discuss all those characters, all those big ideas. But as always, we want to let you know that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. This week, we're recommending, the book we're about to talk about, Shadow of the Sith by Adam Christopher. If you're just tuning in and you want to listen first, you can go download the book by going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audiobook. Give it, a quick listen, a few hours, right? And then come right back here as we discuss Shadow of the Sith. As always, we like to start these book reviews with warnings. Ken, can you make a warning noise?
Ahooga, ahooga, ahooga.
I love it. It makes me feel like I'm watching Saturday morning cartoons and like a wolf saw a pizza. I don't know. Anyway, that's what happens in my cartoon imagination. A wolf sees pizza and little hearts and eyes.
There you go.
Awooga, awooga. Anyway, the warning is spoilers. We do full spoiler reviews. So if you haven't read the book, haven't finished the book, and don't want spoilers, now's your last chance to get out of here. But if you are still with us, we're going to dive in. Ken, what is your big picture reaction to Shadow of the Sith? Do you love it, like it, struggle with parts? Where are you at?
I was so happy to dive in. When the book came, we are fortunate enough to get the advanced copies, but this is because they had pushed back the release date. I had this book, like a lot of folks, way before the release, and that normally would mean, all right, I'll wait till about a week before, right? I'm a procrastinator when it comes to homework. I literally got home from the mailbox, cracked it open, started reading right then. I was so ready for this, and it delivered in a lot of ways. To start off there, I think in terms of love it, like it, struggle with it, I think I really liked it and loved parts of it. I think this was fast paced and had a big start that I really loved. Like I think I'd started reading this before you, and I had that kind of off air, like, have you got, you haven't got to it yet. Okay. I'm going to shut up. And then had a big emotional ending. I was really moved by a lot of the things in the end, both the, happier parts and definitely a lot of sad parts and somber parts and reflective and introspective parts. And I really loved where it ended up. I do feel it had a bit of a slow middle for me at 464 pages or so. It was one of the bigger reads in a while, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. I don't need every book to be 150 pages and made for YA audiences so I can understand it easier. No. But I just felt there was a little slow in the middle for me at times, some repeating beats, and that's okay. It really set out to do some big things, and I think it accomplished it. And definitely have a positive view of the overall book here.
Yeah, I am so intrigued by lots of your thoughts and really agree with them. You had said off air, like, there's this character that's going to pop up, and I wasn't sure how far you were into the book. And then character after character that I love and am fascinated by popped up in the book. So I was like, I got to ask Ken, which was it Shriv?
It was Beaumont Kin.
Okay, that's what I thought. I did an Anakin Skywalker and Phantom Menace yippee when Beaumont Kin showed up. I love the bizarreness of that character in this moment of fleshing him out, which we will talk about. I really, really did enjoy this book a lot. I had a lot of different emotional reactions to it. Like I said, lucky to get it early. That beautiful cover with Luke, Lando, scary mask person was staring at me, and I didn't have time to read it. And then I sat down and I read it in about 3 sittings because I really want to focus on these books. So one of my first visceral reactions when I finished this book is just like, is there a way that I could send this book to Rey, to the character Rey Skywalker? I feel it is unfair that I know all these things
Yeah.
about her family, about Luke and Lando. And my main emotional reaction was, does Rey know this? Has Lando told her this story? Has she communed with Luke? Does she know all this? Because she needs to. So a part of it, like Rey as a character is obviously in the book, not featured a ton, which I think is appropriate. But it was so much about the legacy and about the reality that there are a ton of people who did care about her, always cared about her, always wanted to help her. And it so spoke to that theme of Rey feeling alone, wanting connection, and getting to see this book of you have it, you have a Baba, you have a great grandmother, so many things. So that was a huge emotional reaction to me of the Rey part of it. I'm gonna pause there. Did you have any reaction like that where you wanted Rey to know this?
I did. I'm so glad you said that, and we could discuss it up top. I spent a little bit time this morning over my, traditional pre-podcast English muffin with some peanut butter and vegan butter on it there, going through my head of when do I think Lando said, wait a minute, I know who you are.
Hey now,
come here. And I'm like, because when he says in Rise of Skywalker, oh, of course you are. I forget the exact quote of when they said they're, searching for the dagger or Ochi with all that stuff on a facade. And I'm like, was there a moment there? Or was it, Janet says, great, let me go get my stuff. We're going to go search for my family. Lando's just like, yeah, that's good. And then Rey sits down and he's like, by the way, I spent some energy on that. I think you're right. Cause I was heartbroken by some of the Rey stuff in a good way, a good way. It hit home, where, we'll get to the details of it, but when there's some of those final moments where we know and we know that she's going to spend a lot of her life after these moments in this book waiting for a family that is parents that are already dead. Heartbreaking. But in that good Star Wars gut punch kind of way, which is okay. Yeah.
A lot of this was heartbreaking, gut punching. A lot of this was, patience for the victories in the future. Some other things that I just really loved about this. I love fresh Jedi Master Luke Skywalker adventures. There's a lot going on in this, but I think it was probably my favorite thing about the book that it gave Luke a victory to have, an arc to have. Yeah, and it hints at the tragedies to come, of course, but for Luke to confront a disturbance in the Force and for now end it. It's just great to have fresh Jedi Master Luke Skywalker adventures. Also, just a pleasure to spend quality time with Lando, being very classic Lando, being very well written is Lando. And it is classic Lando, but it's also Lando making a life transition, which we'll talk about in detail. Yeah. I also just, for me, aesthetically, Star Wars is a buffet. It's a grab bag. It is many metaphors for many things. I love how much this is a pulp novel. It's horror. It's the sense of ancient. It is in some ways Lovecraftian. I mean, just kind of the laundry list of spooky, weird, old stuff. Possessed masks, evil wraiths with black lightsabers, crashed ships. They're mistaken for ancient buildings, daggers that drink blood, serpents on diamond moons. I was like, oh, this is great. I can smell the old used bookstore. That these ideas came out of. And I apologize for repeating it so much but it's just something I'm really passionate about in Star Wars, is not losing that sense of pulp and thrill and weird. And this book was so much about that I was really thrilled by that side of Star Wars, that spirit of Star Wars animating so much of this book.
Yeah, look, and a lot of the authors of Star Wars books these days, I think have a love of legends, as a lot of people do. But love of some of those, like you're saying, the weird Lando novels that kind of confused me as a kid, because I'm like, there's no Ewoks in this one. I don't know what's going on. They're kind of bizarre, and it really worked. And we had that question about the magical and the mystical on our questions episode this week. And there's so many of those moments in this book, and I really liked them, and they played well.
Yeah. And it's just a mood thing of just honestly, for me, just sort of aesthetically of tell me more about possessed masks, more evil wraiths, more serpents on diamond moons. Kind of final big picture thought of thing I loved about it is obviously this is, I think, both a tribute to and a fleshing out of Rise of Skywalker. I thought it was great that it wasn't just let's fill in the gaps about the dagger and Ochi, but also let's include Beaumont Kin. Let's include Enric Pride. Let's really take time to see Rey's parents as people, not plot points, which isn't a criticism of Rise of Skywalker. There's only so much room, but I think that's one of the gifts that it does. And I think the book also really explicitly celebrated the primary themes of Rise of Skywalker by frankly just restating them, putting them in other characters' mouths to show how vital they are to the overall story of Star Wars. Things like, you are defined by choices and spirit, not blood. There's a real sense of there are more of us. Let's work together. Literal moments of characters saying you are not alone, the way Yoda does to Rey. So I really like that it was both a let's clarify some of the confusing parts of the backstory of Rise of Skywalker, but then let's also celebrate it. There was a sense of love. Did you get a sense of love, or did you feel more the weight of let's clear up this confusing backstory?
I got a sense of love, and look, I'll be honest, Adam Christopher's been doing the media tour there, hitting all the wonderful channels out there. I have not really watched them because I don't like to watch those kind of things until I'm finished with the book. So I'll go back now and maybe see, not that I'm expecting to say, here's where I stand in Rise of Skywalker, because, but like, I just felt a lot of love for it. I think you and I really preach that tip of the iceberg storytelling idea. And it's no secret, you and I enjoy Rise of Skywalker. We enjoy living in that movie and seeing what's there for us. And I think there's so much. And this does what I would want a book to do. We are going back to fill in some gaps of this entire era. There's so much room in the sequel era to go back and tell stories now. And this is what I want. I want it to look back and go, hey, what can we pull from this movie? And if you want to approach it out there as from a cynical, what can we fix? And maybe occasionally there are some things you might need to fix or clean up. I get that. But I don't think this book does that. It's what can we pull from this? And what story can we tell from what was said in the film or what was shown in the film? And to me, that's no different than any book that might spring up based on the original trilogy at any time in the 90s, 2000s, or now. Going, ooh, what's in there? What story can we tell? What character inspires more tales, including Lando? Oh, he owned the Falcon? Let's go back and do something with that. That was the spirit of the books in the 80s and 90s and beyond. And I think this book has a lot of that in it as well. And and also, by the way, for the entire, I felt it was a little bit of reward for the entire modern era, the Disney era. We're going to go into those connections, but like just the Acolytes of Beyond was one of the things I've been waiting for someone to go back to. And to go back in a big way, I was really excited about that. That stuff kind of worked. It was truly tip the iceberg storytelling, and we got below the waterline here with some of the beats.
Yeah, and to square the Acolytes of the Beyond with the Sith Eternal in what was a really pleasing way for me. We will definitely get to all that stuff. I think for me, the only sort of criticism that I would agree with you on is this was maybe for me just a little bit too much of a good thing. Like in terms of I enjoyed almost every scene I was reading, but I did feel like there was a little bit of a drag on the pace of the actual plot in about halfway through the book. I think part of that is just the nature of plot-wise, this book is constructed as a long chase with the heroes unable to catch the bad guy, right? Luke and Lando aren't going to corner Ochi and defeat him. We know what's going to happen. We get a little bit of balance with that, with Luke being able to really finish this journey with Exum Panchard. But I think there's so many scenes where like, man, I love everything that's happening with Lando here. I love this conversation between Luke and Lando. Hey, I like this new character in this new world, but just wanting a little bit more forward movement in the actual plot.
Yeah. Look, I'll say this. I really enjoyed the push. I've enjoyed, I should say, the push towards shorter chapters in Star Wars novels, not just Kenny needs time to read, and that helps me. But it really helps with that pacing, and dare I say it now, that pulp feel, that pulpy adventure feel of Star Wars. I'll say it there for you. So I enjoy it, but sometimes, especially in the middle, I wanted to jump to other storylines quicker, and other times I wanted to stay, and that's not even a criticism, just how I felt about it at times. And then a lot of the themes and lessons didn't really land with me until the end, which I just kind of view as Adam Christopher really bringing it home in a great way. They were all present through the book, and I was engaged with them, but I sometimes found myself just going, all right, I want to get to the next big point or the big move, the big forward motion in the story versus we're chasing again, or we're running again. And that's kind of where I was in the middle of the book.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but it has so much to love that big picture for me, especially since I sat down and like read most of it in one sitting on one day. I think I read for like 8 hours straight, which maybe contributed to a little bit of that feeling of like I want to get to the kind of the conclusion, the climaxes, and they were really, really rewarding. Final thing I'll say here is just a reminder that we sometimes lose track of these things. I don't know if this book was always planned, but remember, Adam Christopher, I believe, wrote an entire Mandalorian novel that then they decided not to do the Mandalorian expanded publishing, and then wrote this novel instead. So, hey, look, sometimes you don't get to write a Mandalorian novel, but instead you get to write the adventures of Luke Skywalker and Lando Calrissian and Rey's parents. And I bet that felt pretty good, too.
Yeah, and that had been that's somewhat of a gear shift, right? And how fast it needed to happen, and that's a great point. I kind of forgot that. That's interesting.
Yeah, big deal. All right, let's get into the big ideas. What's actually being said, discussed, thought about in Shadow of the Sith? I try to break down some of the big ideas, and then Ken and I discuss them a little bit. Here is what I thought was kind of maybe the main idea. Is this idea of rebirth, healing, setting the past right. There's been trauma, and what's next? I think most of the characters are motivated by fixing some kind of trauma, and some of them are in a really healthy way, and some are in a dangerous, obsessive, not gonna work out way. Lando is searching for his kidnapped daughter and hoping to find some closure eventually by realizing Rey is in danger of being kidnapped and rescuing Rey from the same fate. Luke is aware and warned, by his dad, the spirit of Anakin Skywalker, that there is a disturbance in the Force that must be set right. So it is kind of an active trauma happening in the moment, and Luke needs to find it, address it. And I think there's this light touch, but there are these great moments of Luke also wrestling with his own dark side and aware that's something he has to keep working on healing, setting right, Ochi then is motivated to complete his mission so he can get back to Exegol and allegedly fix the injuries he suffered there. He literally uses the term rebirth. The Exegol is a place of rebirth, and I can fix my horrifically damaged face. Kiza, the acolyte of Beyond, is also lied to by that, Sith Lord haunting her mask, Exum Panchard, that if she helps him find Exegol, she will also literally find rebirth. And even the shards of the Sith Kyber crystal are longing to be reconnected and returned to the whole on Exegol. So good guys and bad guys, this simply are all longing to kind of make something right. Even Dathan, which we learn is the name of Palpatine's Strandcast son and Rey's dad, he's running from the darkness of Exegol, and he is kind of a successful version of this, right? He has birthed something new and hopeful with his family, with his wife Miramar and his daughter Rey. We also meet this new character, Komat, who we learn that used to be an acolyte of the Beyond and was helped back from the dark side by Luke. But this great picture of rebirth in healing and dealing with traumas of the past. She's living on a planet poisoned by a crashed Mon Cala ship that crashed during the war, and the radiation is poisoning the planet, but she is turning that radiation into something productive. She even has that room of plants. She's even turning this place of horror into something beautiful. It is actual rebirth. It's like that planet and her story is the kind of truth of rebirth, and Exegol is this lie of promising rebirth, and it just wants to take stuff from you. So that was kind of how I looked at the big picture theme in the way all these characters were approaching it. What are your overall thoughts? Does this theme work for you? Does it work on a character level, a galaxy level? Is it impactful? What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is a perfectly placed theme for a Star Wars story set in this time period. The sequel trilogy, as we know, deals with a lot of the weight, the influence, and the legacy of the past hanging over everyone, right? It's just kind of affecting everyone in every part of the story, some good, some bad. And that's one of the things you and I think enjoy about the sequel trilogy. Yeah, I know we're talking about going directly more into Rise of Skywalker, but even just looking at, Force Awakens and the shadows of the past being over everyone. I think it's so to have this story, which would be, of course, set before it's set before Force Awakens. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to say?
right before the sequel trilogy. Yeah.
Right in the middle there. I think it's smack dab in the middle, and so I just really love this idea of rebirth and healing, and we are going. The characters aren't like, hey, we're leaving the original trilogy era. They're not saying that, but that's what they're doing, and that's what we're doing as an audience with this. And so it just made a lot of sense to have that repeat a few times in good and bad ways. I mean, the Ochi stuff is painful. Even his description when he talks about, I want to become myself again. He has the memories of hearing the kyber crystals scream out in pain, and on Exegol and everything. So it's just kind of the different sides of everyone transitioning. Everyone in the galaxy is transitioning between two time periods, and I really like that.
Yeah, no, I really like that. I believe they say it's 16 years after Endor, right? Or 17 years after Endor, or 16 years after Jakku, I believe. The math is always hard to keep track of for me.
It is.
Mostly I just try to remember, how old is Ben Solo right now? I found this really, really powerful. I think that it works well in the book. I love that it's really personal with like Lando and Dathan. They are right in the middle of it. Of a horror has happened, and that horror can never entirely be set right. Lando's lost all that time with his daughter, even if he can find her. Dathan will always have the truth that he came from this really horrible place, and they're really striving to find like a healthy way forward through this trauma. So that's really, really relatable on a personal level. And then I think like with Luke and with Comat, those are two characters who are kind of shouldering the burden of the large scale tragedy, right? We're coming out of this galactic war. And even though we won, and even though we probably believe it's a war that needed to be fought to stop Palpatine and stop the Empire, it's still a scar. I love that it's a Mon Cala ship, right? That's poisoning that planet. Because it's just sort of like, how can we rebuild? Like, the tragedy happened. This massive galaxy-wide tragedy happened. How can we gently move? How can we totally accept it? Do not look away from it, but find a way forward, right? And Luke is kind of, he's bearing that brunt of looking back at centuries of the Sith and the Jedi and what his father did, and trying to find this gentle, healthy way forward, keep everything in balance, not ignore the dark side. And Comat's so not ignoring the dark side. Like, this planet is poisoned. I'm gonna make the best of it. It's a great analogy. And I think for me, all of that is very relatable, because I'm literally middle-aged and I'm at the age where I have to look at, like, there are some mistakes or some things that have passed that I can't change. That's a trauma, and I can't fix it. I have to live with it and not let it, eat away at my soul. And I think I and many people have this strange experience of, we are going through, middle age at the same time that this pandemic just happened on such a grand scale, a global scale. And many people have described it psychologically, the pandemic, as a massive midlife crisis for the globe, right? You got rocked. Things changed. There's some things you can't go back for. But now how are you going to move forward? Are you going to accept that it happened, accept that it's still happening, work with it? Or are you just going to go, no? I could just plow forward. So without getting too much into real life stuff, that is one of the reasons that it felt so relatable, because I think so many of us are dealing with our own personal traumas that we need to move on from, and we're also dealing with many, many massive global traumas that we need to find our way out of.
That's a wonderful connection to the big picture in our own lives, but you also did the smaller one. I kind of, I forget I'm middle-aged. It doesn't feel like times. It does. I still feel like I'm 14, ready to just play video games all day, working through that. But yeah, no, I think that's why I connected, especially Lando. There's some big stuff with Lando that I just absolutely loved. But Yeah, the Comet stuff is really powerful and beautiful. She has this description of the planet there that she says to Lando, that the Polar, the planet is a desert, the product of a war, a planet that will remain as a terrible warning forever, but is also a place of peace, knowledge of its past, centering the mind, helping you understand what you must do now and what you can let sleep in your mind. The desert helps you forget. It was a beautiful, beautiful description at the end that really kind of struck a chord with me. Connected to a lot of things you're talking about there.
Yeah, no, that was like the perfect quote that I didn't pull. So thank you to support exactly what we're talking about. Yeah. Let's move on to Lando. What was most effective to you about Lando's journey toward healing or rebirth? And did he succeed in your mind? And if so, how did Lando rebirth himself?
In the beginning, he's really sets this. By the way, I want to say too right now, I thought Adam Christopher nailed the voice of Lando. I thought that was some of his best writing. Luke is very hard to write. I think there's been some documented challenges in how to write Luke, and that it has a lot to do with just Mark Hamill himself, just embodying that character so thoroughly. But and I love the Luke stuff in here, to be clear. But the Lando stuff really sang, and I really loved it. And it starts even on page 59 is where you get a lot of the stuff early on with him, and how just so much of what's going on with him is guilt. With the disappointment came guilt, and guilt being such a powerful a thing that can weigh us all down. So for his journey to start there, I think he does succeed. I think he succeeds in a bittersweet way to me. And look, there's a benefit of us knowing where he's at in Rise of Skywalker, right? He still hasn't found his daughter. We know the journey still continues. A lot of the energy now might be passed on, from him to Jannah and others as he helps them go forward. And so that is kind of a good way to look at it there. But I really like the peace he was seeking at the end of it, even more than the peace he found, if that makes sense. And kind of knowing that was where he ends up, where this starts with this horrible pain, trauma, guilt that does not, he doesn't turn the corner and find Kadara Calrissian. She's not there. We know that. And he finds a way to go forward. And again, that desert stuff, the stuff with Coleman at the end, I really like that. And even him and the Lando showing up Rise of Skywalker was just great fun and loved it. I really loved some of my favorite parts of that movie. And he brings, he's there for some of the big emotional punches, the stuff with Poe over Leia's deathbed. There's more of us, Poe, more of us. I love that Lando stuff. It can bring me too. Bring me to tears sometimes. But we had kind of learned, well, he ended up on Pisana, and that's just where he kind of stopped. And there is a little bit of you and I really connect with Lando's part of the big Rise of Skywalker theme is I'm the old guy whose flying days are done, and you can push past that, and what your past is doesn't have to define you. So where we picked up with him in Rise of Skywalker, this book really helped me understand it even more. And know that he's still got some searching left to do. We'll talk about that for future storylines. But he ends up on Pisana with some purpose. But also, by the time we see him, he's still racked with some of the things going on. So he's still searching for that peace. And that connects really, really well to Rise of Skywalker for me.
Yeah, no, I love all that. Lando is extremely well written. There's a lot of joy in Lando. We get to have fun with this charming, distinctive character, while also letting us see a different Lando, a Lando that's truly, truly haunted. Yeah. And I feel like there's the great bookends in this book of Lando at the beginning. It feels like Lando is going through the motions, trying to be old Lando. Like he's on a specific mission. There is a strategy to it of I'll hang out and I'll, pick up, some whispers and rumors, and in a plot way that works. But for it works for him. He gets a clue and he's off on his adventure. But the way that whole Sabacc scene is written, it's really charming and it's really funny, but it's sad. It is like you're in your 40s and you try to have a party like you did in your 20s because you kind of miss it. But then when you go and do it, you're like, but it's not the same because it's not me anymore. But I'm not. But I don't know who new me is. It really had that vibe for like his internal life at the beginning. So at the end, when he slows down. Lando's not a guy to slow down. He's making deals. He's on the move. He's pulling a fast one, right? He's got a fast ship. He's got a new cape, new. Let's go with the times, and forced to slow down there at the end and appreciate oh, maybe it's okay to slow down. Maybe it's okay to change a little bit, right?
Mm.
And that whole everything with Comat, the desert makes you forget. And I love the very end where he decides to stay on Pisana because, like you're saying, I feel like he's not saying I'm not going to keep searching. I haven't searched this area, but I need to slow down. I don't need to go to every sabacc table, you know?
Yeah.
The end feels very much like it's bittersweet, but it is how Lando got his groove back. And I love that it ends with him, that the whole book ends with him still being Lando, but also changing. The fact that he's, recording the Calrissian Chronicles and he is doing his fun exaggeration, more myth-like telling of the adventure we just read. But he also decides, audio is fine. There's that, like, calm down. Don't need to have my face in it. There's this evolution of like, I'm ready to calm down a little bit. I'm ready to be a little bit more reflective.
I really think you and I connected to Lando over the idea that, maybe you just need to take a nap for a week. And, I know we're going to show our faces a little bit more on YouTube, ForceCenter's YouTube channel, but audio's fine for us. I'll show my face.
This was really a vindication of Lando Calrissian said, yeah, YouTube's not everything.
And I love, it's not just a fun reference, and it's a deep cut reference to, God bless Alex Damon, who had a, field day with all this. We're going to go through some of the connections, but it's like, it's issue 73 of the original Marvel run, the Double Jeopardy. I mean, that's a deep cut reference, and you can stop there, but I just love Lando looking at his old episode and being like, I don't even know who that is anymore. He's looking at Donald Glover going, that guy was cool. I'm different now.
I've been through some things. I gotta evolve. Yeah. So I feel like he had this successful sort of realization that he does need to change in the beginnings of it. But I also do think that he had an emotional victory for me of like, obviously this book is challenging in some ways because he can't win. He can't. If this was an isolated story, not connected to a movie, maybe he'd rescue whoever this Rey girl is, and have a bittersweet victory of like, but I saved her, but I didn't get to save my daughter. Maybe next time. But knowing that he can't even do that, it sets up this like, okay, well, what's going to happen here? Yeah. And I think it's some canon dancing, right? Of how close can they get? How close can Luke and Lando get to Rey and her parents? But I did feel like it was this emotional victory that Dathan and Miramir just knew they weren't alone. Knew some guy named Lando Calrissian was whispering to them. That I see you. You're valued. There are good people in the galaxy. We do want to help you. That it really tied into that Star Wars theme, but Rise of Skywalker theme of you are not alone, right? In a character like Dathan, who is like, can we trust anyone? Is my past always gonna haunt me? And Miramir trying to encourage him, like, yes, there are good people. You are not, defined by where you were born. You're defined by your choices. And I feel like Lando validates to them that more hopeful perspective that they die with.
That's a great point on a little bit of the victory in Lando's storyline and the overall storyline. Again, because the author Adam Christopher is working with what we already know, and we know where we're going, and it's always about the journey. That's easy to say, but sometimes it's hard to execute. And the victory had to be internal, right? The victory had to be inside the heart and soul and minds of these characters, and that's a great example of one of the ways it worked really well.
Yeah. So in contrast, let's talk about a character who did get to have a bit of an external victory, which is Jedi Master Luke Skywalker. Luke successfully ends the threat of the Sith Lord in a mask, Exum Panshard. Do you think Luke was changed by this experience? Did he achieve any healing or rebirth or setting the past right? How did you feel about that?
This is, I'll say a lot of what I'm about to say ends with question marks. All right. I'll just say that. Okay. And I'll use the word wonder. I think, look, there was a victory, right? And there's a great lightsaber fight on page. I think that's hard to do on the page for me, at least, I find myself often just going, I'll wait till the movie version comes out. I thought there was some great lightsaber fighting in this book. I really loved it. I just, So I think there was a victory, and I think there's a lot of him, I don't know, finding a way to move forward, all that good stuff. But I was really drawn to Luke at the end. I just wonder if he's starting to become haunted, not literally, not with a mask, though he does possess it at the end, right, from a certain point of view. I was just drawn to him. Again, he was successful, but there is just something lingering, right, and something he fully doesn't understand. And he gets out his flight suit because he knows he's not done. But I'm like, how much from here does this build into fear? Does this build into frustration and a sense of foreboding? And so because of that, Luke remains kind of a wonderful, delicious mystery to me, even though we spent some quality time with him. And it was fun to spend time with Luke in this era. So, yes, I think there's some great things he experienced. I think there was some healing, all that kind of stuff, especially with the Sith. But I love where this book kind of ends with him he can't even explain. It's like me trying to explain some of my points. Luke's there to go into Lando. Like, there's something there. There's something there. I can't figure it out. There's like a nothing. The void, the nothing, the silence is big through this book. It pops up a lot. And I just kind of like that in a way, because I want more of the storytelling from this era, right? So I felt it moved Luke forward in different ways.
Yeah, I love it. There's that great passage where Luke talks about the different ways to feel, or he thinks about the different ways to feel the dark side, and like felt the raging fire of his father when he was Darth Vader, right? And felt the icy cold of Palpatine. And I like that picture of the dark side as like, it's nihilism, it's a void, it's nothing, right? When you get to the heart of it, at the end of the day, it's the absence of light, it's the absence of life, it's nothing. And I love Luke, this just absolute champion of the light, being haunted by nihilism.
Yeah.
I loved a lot of the action. I thought Luke was really well written. I could hear all those lines out of like, there were those flashes of a charming farm boy Luke, as Lando describes him, but it was like centered Jedi master, the young man who failed because he thought it was all about adventure and excitement, and is now like, I got an F on one test, I will get A pluses for the rest of my life on everything. I just love that is his energy, that is his strength, and that is the cracks that appear is needing to never fail anyone, needing to never make a mistake, needing to be the most serious, the most dedicated. And I felt like that the charm of Luke was there, and that virtue and that flaw of needing to do the right thing always was really, really there. Throughout this. Go for it.
I love what you're saying here, and I love some of the interactions with Ben show a lot about that. And like, am I doing right? I'm making him say this, I'm making him say that. Do I have him cut his hair or not? Just there's a lot going on with the weight of his shoulders. What's so hard is to do is a lot of the Luke we've seen outside of even Last Jedi, but outside of the films. Whether it be Mando, whether it be video games, the Battlefront 2 stuff, Luke is right. Luke isn't the farm boy. There's not a lot of jokes and laughter with Luke. There's seriousness, this was serious mind, all those kind of things. And I love that. So that therefore I think it's kind of hard, right? You're just writing this dour space wizard guy sometimes, even though I love that about Luke. But I love some of the flashes of what I felt was a little bit of old Luke, a little bit of Luke, when Han runs off and says, hey, it's me, and him kind of looking at Leia. Like, I felt some of that energy from Luke, and I think Adam Christopher did a good job with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Lando's a great character to bring that out. And so is Ben. Ben Solo in those great chapters. I think for me, Luke's journey is this knowledge that the dark side is always there. And I like this passage in particular where he really acknowledges it. Luke says, is thinking, he was a Jedi. His commitment to the ways of the Order ran deep. Yes, it was true he had power, but his connection to the Force was not a thing to covet. He had a responsibility to wield that power with care and restraint, every use of it taking him one step away from the darkness that he knew, despite everything, still lingered in his heart. It perhaps did in the hearts of all sentient beings. Every action, one step toward the light. So it seems like, 16, 17 years into being Jedi Master Luke Skywalker, having a thriving school, having tried to teach Leia, nope. Tried to teach Grogu, nope. Going through all of the things that he's done, that he's coming to this sort of acceptance of, this is absolutely an always battle. So how do I manage that in every moment of every day? My darkness is there. the galaxy's darkness is there, that there's a real like sense of like, if I slip, I could make a choice that I'm really not okay with. And I feel like this whole book, seeing these people who are absolutely warped by the promise, the lie of the dark side of we'll fix everything, we'll give you power, you'll be able to, vengeance will fix everything, you know, Ochi and Kiza and Exum and Panchard. And I love that the final vision of that fight is Luke trying to use the Force for good, right? Pulling the mask away. And the mask flips at the last minute of going like, but what if you gave in, right? What if you what if you let the dark side become you? And then Luke uses, you know, a red and a green blade to destroy the mask. It's like a cool beat. It's a cool victory because Luke Skywalker won, right? Yeah. But it allows that question mark because it is just like his father with the red blade and the blue blade, the decision to cut Dooku's head, right? It has some good Star Wars poetry with that image of he uses the red blade and the green blade. He destroys the mask and it's a victory in this moment, but it's almost like this. He's sitting more with this realization of red blade in one hand, green blade in the other, of like the darkness is always, always, always there. And I think at the end of the book, he's just like, he's a little shaken by it, right? There's the the passage at the end was like, that darkness, that void, that horror, the visions, all of that. I know the disturbance in the Force that my father warned me about. It was this mask, and I stopped it. And yet I'm still kind of haunted by it because it's this wound, and it's going to take a long time to heal this wound in the Force. And it does set him on the path, I think, towards, you know, what is happening to him in the sequel trilogy, that it's this really, really heavy weight to live every moment of every day going, there's horrible darkness everywhere, including inside myself. Can't break for even a second. Can't break for even a second. And that to me is his great tragedy with Kylo, and why he is so hard on himself, because he broke for a second. He ignited that blade for a second, and then's like, of course that's wrong, and turned it off. It's the 1 second. And I feel like it builds to that really well.
And you use the term the weight on. Can you just imagine? Going back to what I was saying about Haunted, going forward with this, and just knowing that any step's the wrong step. So I gotta look down on the ground every time. The pressure, the weight, it just kind of adds to what we learned about him in The Last Jedi for me. It just what was going through his head all the time. And I love what you're saying. Hey, look at me, got a victory. Man, that doesn't feel like a victory. It feels like there's more things to come. And that's kind of the burden of a Jedi, right? That's kind of what they're always there for that. They always have to be there for that.
Yeah, and the risk of getting too cocky, right? And I mean, that's sort of portrayed a little bit in the Rise of Kylo Ren comic book. That's certainly what Luke says about himself in The Last Jedi. So it's to see him in this place of like, I have massive amounts of power, got to be real careful with it. Don't want to get cocky, but I do have a responsibility. I have to act. Really, to me, is a justice for the Jedi, for the philosophy of the Jedi. Luke is trying to find this balance at all times.
Yeah, and just looking at other folks saying, great, we need a hero, like a great pop song. We need a hero, and him just going, man, that's a burden. That's a burden.
Yeah,
and that's just one way to look at Luke's story in the sequels, but I love it.
Yeah, and there's some great stuff. I love this passage on page 366 where he's talking about really having to stop Exum Panchard in that mask, in talking about all the people that died to give Exum that dark power, and Luke owed it to them. It was not revenge or punishment, but justice. Like, some good Jedi philosophy there. And I agree with you. I think I liked all the lightsaber action, but that fight, again, sounds like he's fighting on a David Bowie song, Serpents on a Diamond Moon. Luke Skywalker had a fight in a David Bowie song title. Loved it.
We're on the diamond moon, fighting serpents with blades. Yeah.
The dark mask turns. The dark mask turns. Oh, David Bowie. Rest in power. All right. Of all the other characters wrestling with rebirth and healing, who or what landed with you the most?
I'm building to Daith and a Mirror, but I want to touch upon Komat and her presence just being very unique, and ends up being unique. And I'll say this: it started with when we first go meet her. I had a little bit of a personal reaction of another kind of mysterious, mostly masked, quiet character. I think we've seen a lot of those in Star Wars novels, and I don't mean that as a bad thing, but I just kind of was like, okay, here we go again. And I don't know, it just it was such a great job. The character really transitioned over the course of the story to just more than that. And it was something very peaceful, something very sobering to her story. This idea that maybe, I don't know, the path to redemption doesn't always mean you, emerged unchanged, like, yay, everyone's forgiven me, I'm great. Like there's some weight to it and you need to still kind of learn from it. But going forward, again, going back to what we're describing, as she even describes her own planet where she is right now. So yeah, that was unique. Love that. Also, I'll say Ochi, he's just straight up saying it. Around page 46 or so is where he's just like, I want to be healed. My eyes were burned. My lips were burned. All those horrible things. I witnessed the shards of the crystals screaming out in pain. And I've been promised if I go to Exegil, it is a rebirth. It's healing. He's like saying this stuff. But then the acolyte, or not the acolytes, but the cultists are presenting this idea, the healing, is something he has to earn. And I'm not saying that he has to work for or try, like a good concept of, hey, earn it. It's presented as you need to win this right. Then you've earned it. You need to do this. Then you can get to be to heal. And it is the exact opposite of what Comat has experienced and went through. So I love those two kind of dual presences in the story.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. And yeah, you get the sense that if Ochi had captured Rey and brought her back, I think there probably would have been one more task and one more task and one more task, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Comat was huge for me. And I agree with you. At first, it was like, okay, I feel like we've seen this kind of character. Karos in Alphabet Squadron came to mind.
Yep.
But then learning that the whole truth of the character, the Acolyte of Beyond, who Luke rescued, and seeing that purified white blade and seeing that, like, hey, I am living on a symbol of the cost of war, but I'm going to slowly make it better. And I live in solitude, but okay, cool. I'll also be flexible about that.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things I just liked about the character. I would have liked the character if Luke wasn't in this book, but I have to be honest also, as a longtime Luke Skywalker fan, it was fun to spend time with somebody Luke Skywalker saved, with somebody who is a victory in life because of the light of Luke Skywalker. That was really cool.
I think that's a great point. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. I really loved Ochi, and I know this character got established in the Vader comics of him being this kind of cocky weirdo. I also love.
Can I just say, Ochi's a prick? I'm just gonna say, okay. Sorry to young. He's just and I love to hate him.
Yeah, he is. He's just a D-bag, right? He kind of works. He's this great space fantasy, scary Jedi hunter with a terrifying face and a dagger that drinks blood. And he's also just like, is that guy going to be at the party? Then I'm not going.
Yeah, no, because
D-bag.
When Lando, he's at the bar just being that a-hole. And we've all been there. We're like, could this guy stop with his Star Wars takes? Like, Jesus, this guy's driving me crazy. And I'm just trying to sit here in the corner and play Pac-Man at the bar. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I loved everything about Ochi. I love Enric Pride. He gets to be in the film a very small amount in Rise of Skywalker, and performed so well. And just, I think the tip of the iceberg storytelling, as I served you in the old wars, I'll serve you again, all that. But I thought as two characters who are got this dark vision of rebirth of, I will get back what's mine. Cause hey, Pride wants the Empire back, the First Order. I almost looked at it as like this meme where Ochi and Pride are shaking hands, and then you see the text of what they're shaking hands over, and the thing that they're agreeing on as they shake hands is, isn't it great to be bitter, lonely drunks desperate for validation? Like, they're so Star Wars. The ramrod straight military guy, Enric Pride, who looks down his nose literally at everybody, and Ochi, scary Jedi hunter. And you scrape back all of the fun Star Wars layers, and there are these very real people of just like, you are sad, lonely, literal alcoholics, just desperate to be seen and to have everybody point at you and go, they're awesome. They're better than me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I love that. Did you want to talk a little bit about Rey's parents?
Yeah, it was kind of big for me. Dathan and Miramir, built-in tragedy, but you're kind of rooting for him. And follow me on this here. In a weird way, I saw this a little bit of an immigrant story. My father and his family came to America in 1951. and just recently lost my grandfather and my grandmother, my grandfather before that. And they, fled from the Russian government and came over here to start a new life. And so this idea of just trying to leave where you came from to start a new life, to do it for yourself, to do it for your children, to do it for the future, and often have to do it on your own despite others attempting to help or saying they're help. And I love what you're saying of just there was this feeling of help. We're not alone, but they're still having to do so much on their own. And so despite knowing the end, I was just rooting for the family to get to the promised land, and that promised land being some sort of safe future, this idea to start over. More than, you're right. It was when the news came out that, hey, we got the names of her parents, they're in this story. That could easily be a checklist thing. You talked about in Rise of Skywalker, they're kind of they're a plot point and without a doubt. But now we spent time with them, and that sang for me as well. And I really connected it with on that personal level for me.
Yeah, no, I think they in some ways are the victors of this theme that we're talking about of rebirth, right? Because it's literally Dathan saying, I'm not going to be trapped by the trauma of my origins. I am going to reach out. I am going to make connection. I am going to build to the future. I mean, it's not even remotely subtle. He lets himself experience connection, joy, love, hope, and that connection literally births a person who's going to help save the galaxy. And at this point in the story, we don't know the rest of Rey's story. How many times does she save the galaxy? How much hope does she inspire? All because these two people, Dathan in Miramar, were ready to face the awful truth and find a way to be hopeful and forward moving within that. Yeah,
no, well said. And where it emerges from, even just down to the planet, down to what a horrible home planet to have to live in. Oh my God, what fun did you have as a kid? Just to see what comes out of that, and to see again, how you approach it and how you build it, and how you work towards hope, and it comes out of connections. All those things that was really powerful for me, and one of my favorite things of the book. Some of the times with just the stuff going on around them is when I've most felt like I'd like to move forward in the novel. But I still like spending time with them. I learned so much about them, and I enjoyed that part of it.
Yeah, I like their memories. I like the scenes of their past. I like their connection and interactions. Like I almost like the kind of the small quiet moments. And and then some of the plot was almost a little bit bittersweet because this isn't going to work out.
Yeah.
So let's get to the part where it doesn't work out. Yeah. All right. Want to talk about another big idea in the book, which is just this sense of the ancient awakening. Right. There's a lot in this book that's about the past refusing to stay dead, as the spirit of Anakin Skywalker says about this disturbance in the Force. It is a shadow cast long from an ancient time. Even in the realm of the Force, Anakin Skywalker talks in a really melodramatic way, which he's done since he was a child, which I love. But it's just such a theme statement to me of it is a shadow cast long from an ancient time. Exegol, this ancient lost planet, is really the pulsing core of this book. Everybody wants to get to it or get away from it. Multiple characters see visions of it. Exum Panchard's ancient evil is resurfacing, and Exum Panchard's whole story is like the plot of the sequel trilogy, right? It's this is happening with Exum, and the readers know, the characters don't, but the readers know that Palpatine, the First Order, the Final Order, all are plotting to do the same, kind of reemerge and do harm to the galaxy. We learn that the acolytes of the Beyond are basically antique hunters, but of evil. Beaumont Kin, we get to meet, and he's digging up Sith crystals and crashed ancient spaceships. Luke and Lor San Tekka, we already know this, but the book spends a bunch of time about how much their whole thing is finding remnants of the past. So this entire book is all about digging up the past in the ancient awakening. What is the power of that to you? Does it affect you? And if so, how does the idea of the ancient awakening affect you?
I think it's thematically valuable to the overall Star Wars saga. As we keep saying, it's one of the big themes of the sequel trilogy. So this kind of helps it build towards that, right? Like, there would be a situation where years from now, I might suggest someone, oh, you haven't seen Star Wars yet? Cool. Well, read this before you go to 7, 8, 9, and you might just really pick up on the themes in all three of those films. So I think it's just very valuable. The Ancient Awakening, both in a a threat, but also what's there. So, I just think it's also a powerful lesson for all of us. Whether that ancient is some form of evil, or the oppression, the constant grab for power by the powerful, or whether it's the things in our past that don't just go away, right? They have to be defeated or lived with, or you have to grow with them or grow from them. So this hangs over a lot of the story. I thought it was really valuable and interesting, down to, like you said, digging, Lor Santega, Luke searching, acolytes beyond, obsessed with the past. Love that, having them back. Love all that. And it's all valuable to the overall saga.
Yeah, no, it is really, I think, explicitly connected to the sequel trilogy. Rey literally growing up in that graveyard of the past, and that lesson too of ancient evils aren't always ancient. They are the same lust for power is going to emerge, and people are going to try to control others and glorify themselves by taking others' power. So there's definitely like some big life lessons, but also for me, I think just in terms of mood, aesthetic, this sense of the ancient awakening in this mysterious past, that's a big part of my attraction to the original Star Wars trilogy, and A New Hope in particular. I talk a lot about, A New Hope being this mashup of the old and the new. There's so much about it that was very new at the time, but it was, in kind of an old ancient fantasy story freshened up for the 1970s. Yeah. And there's so much in the film that invites you to wonder about the mysterious past. It's, it's a long time ago, I always talk about when Obi-Wan says, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. And there's this mysterious trill of something awakening. The way Tarkin talks about that ancient religion, and we can all make our jokes about like, it turns out it's 19 years and all that. But for me, growing up with the original trilogy, there was this sense of, oh, wow, there's so much history and you never know how you're tied to it or how it might emerge. There's this sense, I just love that sense of mystery that we're connected to things that we don't even know happened. And there's so much to be discovered. I just really like that sense of mystery being a part of Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah. And it being something that's always going to be there, right? It's always going to be there.
Yep.
And going back to some of the discussions around even Force Awakens. Now, visually, I can understand maybe you want more than X-Wings and TIE fighters and that kind of stuff. We talked about that too. But just the concept of what JJ was even saying going to the Force Awakens of, the old evils, even our own world, they still exist. They're still there. And what if they came back to a big degree, to a dangerous level? I think that's valuable to Star Wars.
Absolutely. Which leads me to a very important question, Ken. If you were Luke Skywalker, would you spend so much time collecting remnants of the past?
Yeah, totally. I would. I like going to a museum every now and then. It makes sense to someone trying to rebuild a new order, right? Makes sense for someone trying to keep ancient evils at bay, but also we got the past itself. So, I think I still like that. And still, I think I might also be partial to the idea of more Lore and Luke stories where he and Lor Santega are going around the galaxy collecting these things. And we've been talking about that since episode 7, right? That's been something we've all loved. So to actually get a taste of that here was really intriguing. So the Pileo, compass, all that stuff, I really do like it. And I think there's potentially great purpose behind Luke needing to do that. And wanting to do that too.
Yeah, I love this story because it is Luke trying, I think, to have a healthy relationship with the past, right? He is trying to find the entirety of the past. He is trying to find dark side relics to not only contain them, but to understand what they are, to understand what the evil is, to truly, truly face the evil and know it. But then he's also trying to find all the Jedi stuff, right? To build from what was good and not just say the past is good or bad. It is both. And what do we need to make sure we don't repeat? And what can we learn from? And I think that's why he's trying to do it. And then on top of it, I love all this stuff with Luke and Lore and their relationship, but I also just, as somebody who has worked at museums, my wife has worked at museums or historic houses most of our married life. We are preservationists at heart. We love old restaurants. There's just something about like, Luke is like a museum nerd, right? That he's in a fight possibly for his life to stop this horrific dark side presence. And he's like, but I can't let the books burn. Yeah. That I was like screaming at the book, like, do it. Try to rescue those ancient texts from the fire. It's like he's kind of a museum nerd, right? Like he'd go to museums and go like, Are the temperature settings right for this collection? Because the temperature is supposed to be exactly this for the collections.
No,
He's a history nerd, and I love it.
I love it, and you put them on the ups ends of the Acolytes of Beyond, especially back in the day, where they're going around trying to collect all that stuff for nefarious reasons, without a doubt. And I think that's works for me as well, seeing the difference.
Yeah. And there was a light touch on the book. We didn't spend a lot of time on it, but I think Luke's desire to find the Sith relics and understand them, there was a great contrast to, like, the rest of the galaxy doesn't want to look behind, right? In Beaumont Kin's dig site, we have that professor, the bird guy, Aklarka, who says on page 89, "The occult and the arcane have no place in the halls of Lurkt Historical Institute. Why the very thought of it?" Right. And then on page 150, the New Republic officer, Lieutenant Ziegler, says the Sith are extinct. I'm sorry to speak out of turn, man, but that kind of talk is dangerous. Like, this is what leads to the sequel trilogy, right? This is the the Empire can't come back. The Sith are a myth. Let's just wipe it all. No. It's we don't talk about that in proper halls of power. And Luke being like, no, we have to, so it doesn't repeat. And like Aklarka and Lieutenant Ziegler, they're the problem, in my opinion.
You know, it's almost as if you go to a tour of a historical site and they try to give you the entire picture of the person that lived on that historical site, and you're like, nope. And you can't erase it. You have to learn from it and build from that.
Exactly. And then I do like at the very end that Luke's like, okay, well, the spirit of Exum is out of this mask, but what am I going to do with the shards? I'll ask Lore if they should go in my museum or be destroyed.
Yeah.
So in contrast to the Ancient Awakening, Dathan really wants to get away from Exegol. Luke mentions it should stay hidden. And we get a passage on page 142 of Lando not liking nostalgia. I wanted to share that one. Lando says, history. It wasn't something Lando dwelled on. Not before, certainly not now. He had never understood nostalgia, how people could get so caught up in their own past period. Their own past. Lando had always looked to the future, to a destiny he could control, not a past he would regret, a future that had been shattered utterly by the abduction of his daughter. How do you feel about the hero's response to the Ancient? Obviously, the bad guys all want to dig it up. Luke wants to preserve some of it, but he's like, Exegol, that's good. Lando's like, I got no interest in that. Yeah. How do you feel about that?
It sounds like Lando is on a podcast saying he doesn't want a Lando series on Disney Plus. He only wants new characters. That's what it sounds like to me. Hey, Star Wars has quite the relationship with the past, doesn't it? I mean, it's what we're talking about here today, and I kind of love it. And I think there's some healthy approaches here from Lando overall, though I think generally, and this might just be personally, you never want to forget the past. Doesn't mean, again, I say that generally, but the past has a tendency to, I don't know, just control so much of the future. And perhaps that's what the past, as if I'm kind of imagining the past being some villainous concept itself, like the past is in a mask walking around with a sword. And that's what it wants, right? It just wants to, it just wants to control that future. It wants to, doesn't want you to leave it, right? It does not want you to change, grow, or move beyond it. And so, I don't know. There's something about Lando's. I love this is actually one of my favorite little sections of the book. I love that you pulled this out. I had made a note of it as well early on when I was reading. I love it. I think there's a lot of writing here. I think there's a lot of potential danger if you're not dealing with some of the stuff there. So I think that's overall where I look at it.
Absolutely. I think Lando and Dathan are both like have this really healthy attitude toward evolution.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that Luke is looking back to the past, but I feel like a part of Luke's story in this era too is that he is right on the edge of needing the guidance of the past more than he should, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think it is really good to face the past and what was bad and what can we learn from, but there's then that risk of, but are you making a decision for yourself in the present, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that ties it for me. It ties into him telling Rey, this is your fight. That's something Luke's really learned of, like, the past is valuable. 1,000 generations live in you. That's great. But also you're here now. What are you going to do? Yeah. And I felt like there's some great seeds of that.
Love that. No, great stuff.
I also wanted to talk briefly about masks and reflections. Multiple characters throughout the book are masked, obsessed with masks. Arguably, the main villain is a mask.
Yes.
We have the mask of Exum Panchard. We have Ochi's lost red and white mask that he lost when he got his face all messed up that he keeps talking about. We got Komat's mirror masks to deal with the poison. Comat has the Wind Raider of Talaran armor that she ends up giving to Lando. And then also many characters see themselves in reflections, in masks, in steel, in transparent steel windows. What's the power of this theme to you? Were masks in this story hiding or showing identity?
Ooh, that's the question. I love it. Again, this flows nicely into the sequel era, particularly Force Awakens, which was really playing with masks, right? And pulling it off to find out who you truly are. I think of Rise of Skywalker, Kylo's own mask representing so much to him, fear, a sense of power, and a new sense of design. Everyone wants to get a new haircut or a new mask. I'm there for all that. But what face is real? We had that great question recently on what is the true face of Palpatine? Like almost down to like literally, what is the true face of Palpatine? Is it the old man who loves democracy or the unlimited power face? And it's great. I love this kind of stuff. But then to have it, it does pop up a lot. And Comat's mask, it so simply just reflects you, right? Interesting concept for this book. We talked about reflective and this kind of not that the book's not somber and dour, but there's a lot of introspection in this book. And I think to have mirrors literally going, hey, this is you saying this is you doing this. What do you think about that? I thought that was really fun, really good.
Yeah, I thought there was a good contrast to it, because I think a lot of the people who were after masks, it was about like trying to get them back so they could be someone specific, that they could kind of construct someone. Like almost Ochi was Ochi's obsession with his red and white mask is almost like, that's my 20s and I can put it back on.
You guys want to go out tonight? You guys want to go out tonight? You want to go out tonight?
Yeah, and obviously Exum Panchard is this great Sith perspective of clinging, haunting, not being willing to leave that mask. There's great stuff about poor Kaiza, the Acolyte of Beyond, who knew that she'd fall into it and couldn't resist putting it on. She knew it was a drug. She knew she didn't want to put it on, but she was going to. So it was a lot of the masks sort of clinging to something that is past, or kind of making yourself somebody who you aren't really but want to be. And then I think a great contrast that these characters who are wrestling with these internal choices and doubts, the moments of Lando, Death, and Mir, Luke, like all these characters who are wrestling, like have to keep seeing themselves. So like the masks, I think in this book were an attempt to hide, and the reflections were like, you can't.
Yeah.
Here you are again. Look at yourself.
Hello. Yeah.
Hello. Want to move on then to bigger Star Wars themes. There's a couple that I wanted to highlight, and then see if you thought anything. You Are Not Alone is such a strong, clear theme of Star Wars, but just so explicitly in bold, underlined in Rise of Skywalker. It's directly said by Anakin. I believe Miramar as well. It's reinforced through multiple actions of characters being there for you. Anakin's specific quote to Luke is, "Remember, my son, no matter how dark the night may grow, you are never alone." Was this effective for you? And did you have kind of a favorite moment of that theme?
I reread that Anakin one this morning, and I really do love it, because also there's a little bit of pain and frustration. His father using all the energy just to kind of be there, right? And so Luke wanting more and saying there's so much left to ask, and that's just kind of the way it is sometimes in life. So that one was effective. You mentioned it earlier, but I loved just Dathan and Mir just kind of knowing someone was out there, even though it wasn't felt directly, and so much was still on their own, and all that really drove home. We're talking about the connection and not being alone, but then it just drove home, like you said, with Rey, knowing what's coming and know the dark days that are ahead for her. I was even thinking, I was like, what is the first day that she scraped on the inside of that walker? It probably wasn't necessarily the next day after, she's with Unkar, but and how she felt that, and it wasn't necessarily always true, right? She had to just really be open into that connection, find that connection, work hard for that connection, and go through so much trauma to get that connection. So it made me reflect on the story of Rey again.
Yeah, absolutely. Just some great moments there. I think kind of a moment of action where I felt like the "you are not alone" idea really resonated. Like Luke's got this heavy burden on his shoulders. He's not alone. He's got Lore. He's got his students. I think he knows he can always turn to Leia if he needs or wants.
Yeah.
But this specific moment where Luke's like, it's my responsibility to stop Exum Panchard, right? And there's this moment where he's in the fight and he needs help, right? And Comat is there in the David Bowie song, "The Serpent's on the Diamond Moon," and jumps up, right, and cuts those Sith crystals down with the white blade that Luke helped purify. And it's just a great moment of kindness begetting kindness, right? You don't go to the light because I'll do a favor and then somebody will have my back, and it's not an exchange. That's not the point, but that is the truth of it. When we lift one another up, we lift one another up, and it's a moment of Luke benefiting from the philosophy of the Jedi, the philosophy of the light side of I helped you, and what do you know? Now you're here when I need help.
Yeah. Oh, it's so great. We can slay serpents on diamond moons. Yes.
The other fun theme I wanted to talk about is vulnerable children. Obviously, Kadara Calrissian, Lando's daughter, Rey, Dathan is a vulnerable child, I think, skulking around on Exegol. Kiza is portrayed as being young and in need of something when she joined the Acolytes and then got taken by this mask. There's even the hint of it with 16-year-old Ben in those scenes where we know that he's vulnerable. This has been happening a lot in Star Wars. Obi-Wan was a lot about vulnerable youth. Why do you think that idea is so important in Star Wars? The idea of children needing protection.
I think it goes back to Lucas's core themes, what he was trying to accomplish with this morality tale for the 12-year-old and all of us, but the importance of the next generation should never be lost on the Star Wars stories. I think that's why often the fight is had, right? Not just making it a better day for you, but a better day for the future. I love that. I was even doing, a little bit diving on Kiza and just kind of refreshing myself on some of the events in the Aftermath series, just where she comes from. Endured poverty and humiliation during her childhood, just kind of reading from Wikipedia again, and how this fueled her anger and hatred, and how she wasn't protected then, and that kind of led to her there. And poverty and humiliation might always be there no matter the best efforts of those around her, but how she didn't feel protected from them, didn't feel like she could grow from it. And then the first kind of group or the first kind of person to come along and make a false promise and build upon her anger and hatred for it all, which are natural and maybe at times justified reactions to some of the situations in your life. I think that's where it really kind of seeing the sadness in that character, the just the pain and knowing, and then at one point kind of choosing, right? Luke has that moment with her like, oh, damn it, she just chose to put that mask back on. Like, that just kind of drove home the importance of protecting the next generation or treating the next generation right or being there for them.
Yeah, I loved how much Luke tried to save her soul and her body, and it's just like, she's made the choice. I can't make it for her. Yeah, I really agree with that. I think, Luke is famously saying, Star Wars is for 12-year-olds. If that's true, I think another part of the message is also to adults of like, hey, be there for the 12-year-olds. This story is telling us how to make those choices as we venture out into the world, but it's always a generational story. And it's also, I think, really advocating to be there for the next generation. And I think you highlighting Kiza is just what would have been different in this entire story if someone had been there for her.
Yeah, and as always, it's not always easy. And I think we reference that Lucas statement. Everyone does, and it can be used against Star Wars so many times. Even sometimes it feels like George is like, "Hey, it's for kids. Stop taking it so seriously." I don't think George really means that. I think he's just a food court grumpy, cantankerous character at times. But yeah, I think you're right to point out it. Yeah, it is. The story is for them, but what are you as an older generation person? What are you taking from that story? You and I both love the Bail and Brea stuff in the Kenobi series. It's important to us of having those people be right there with them for the change. It's valuable stuff.
Yeah. Go check out the wonderful essay Ken did on YouTube about Little Leia.
Little Leia, lessons from Little Leia, available now on YouTube. Yes.
Are there any other thematic ideas you want to discuss, big or small, from this novel before we take a quick break?
We have definitely discussed a lot. You've done a wonderful job of pulling the big ones, so I will withhold. Only thing, one of the big themes is have friends like Shriv in your life. That's one of my favorites.
All right, we are going to take a quick break, and we're going to be back to talk Shriv and, a few other canon connections in this massive canon connection book. Back in a moment. And we are back to continue our discussion of Shadow of the Sith by Adam Christopher. We talk some of the big ideas, some of the big themes, so let's nerd out on all the canon connections, big and small and meaningful. Some fun, some pretty deep. Ken, I have a big picture question for you. We just talked through Brotherhood a little while ago, and that one had a lot of connections and ideas and references. Do you feel that the Star Wars authors are competing with one another to see who can make Alex and Molly Damon of Star Wars Explained make the longest Easter egg video?
At this point, I'm starting to think yes. I'm starting to think they probably have virtual meetings around the world. All the authors get together and be like, "How many you got? 79? All right, cool. I'm gonna do 80." And it's fun. I feel we at the time of this recording, we just had that new photo series of photos released from the satellite telescope up there, right? I forget the name of it. There, you science fans know. You know what I'm talking about? I feel like that right now. I'm just looking at 1,000 galleries, galaxies in the sky. This gallery of Easter eggs, and I am overwhelmed and awed all at the same time.
Yeah. I want to have a little bit of a sense of humor about it, because I do think there's stuff we're going to talk about that are like characters. It's Anakin, it's Rey's parents, it's Oshi's backstory, it's story, it's meaning, it's connections, and then there's the hey. You're writing a Star Wars. Why don't you have fun mentioning this thing from that video game, from that old book, all that kind of stuff. And I think for me, like, I love almost all of it, but the sheer volume of it can kind of get overwhelming sometimes. And I always want to be experiencing the story, and I don't ever want to slip into reading these books like it's a treasure hunt,
Yeah. No, look, I'll just say this. It's totally fun. And the ones that I get, I go, ha, I got. And the ones that I don't, I go, it's probably Legends. And I didn't read that book. I'll wait for Alex and Molly to tell me. So I don't want that ever to be lost. I just think, go into the term emotional canon totally emerged from the ForceCenter discussions, where it's like, it isn't about a checklist of lore or checklist of things, it is the emotions, the themes of Star Wars. How can you connect the story of this character in this film to someone else's story 6 films later? That's the emotional canon we love. And that just drives a lot of our interest in Star Wars. But it does not mean I don't enjoy, I got it, Shriv. Oh, every Shriv's back. Like, I was so happy. So happy. And Beaumont Ken, I was like, Luke Skywalker spoke to Beaumont Ken. What are you talking about? It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is Beaumont Kin's beginning of studying the Sith, so he could deliver that line that so many people make fun of in Rise of Skywalker. Is the beginning of it. No, I think the thing with, like, you're helping me work through my feelings. I think characters and planets and stuff like that, I really like, because I like Star Wars being an interconnected story. I like, hey, if Lando needs some resources, this is probably the person he'd call. It's Shriv, Yeah. I love Luke going to Tython, because that's not just like a check mark. That's a specific place with specific, that scene stone is a specific place with specific abilities. I love that stuff. And then there are the things that are just feels like, here's kind of an Easter egg, something the author loves. So the author put it in. And I'm a total hypocrite when it comes to those, because some of them I'm like, yeah. And some of them I'm like, oh, okay. Well, and I had that experience in this book where I had one that I'm owning my hypocrisy. It was just a taste. One was like, this is so indulgent and I love it. Best thing ever. And another was like, come on.
It's funny, you and I didn't talk or confirm this off air, but I meant to. But because remember that one day we were recording, I go, oh, man, I just got to something. A reference in the book I cannot wait for you to get to, so we can discuss our probably similar feelings on it, which is both fun and so it's a lot of fun. No, and again, overall picture on it, the Mike Chen one was, he was tweeting them out, and it was almost like a challenge to Star Wars Explained, right? It was, and I do love him, and I don't think I've never felt in all of the books that this has happened in, and it happens in some more than others, I've never felt overwhelmed by it. I take it for what it is. It's just not where I want to stop engaging with the story.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you for helping me talk through the parts that I like, and then the parts that can sometimes be a risk of bumping me out of the story. And maybe it's just totally subjective. Maybe it's just me, where sometimes something that just seems like kind of a reference for fun's sake can bump me out of the story a little bit. But then sometimes I love it, and we'll get to those. But we're going to talk about the big stuff first, the true emotional canon. Yeah. The biggest perhaps being, the spirit of Anakin Skywalker. We got part of this in an excerpt early on. I enjoyed it even more in the flow of the story. Luke is on the seeing stone on Tython. He is meditating. He has what appears to be a half vision, half-real trip to Exegol, where he is being attacked by these wraiths that are both there and not there, and phase out of existence whenever Luke slashes at them. So Anakin uses all his power to pull Luke free from this vision back to Tython. He says to Luke, hell has many names, Luke, in response to Luke asking if he was on Exegol. Anakin says, hell has many names, Luke. The Seeing Stone took part of you there, but it has taken all that I can give to bring you back. Also within this brief conversation, Luke sees a flash of Sebastian Shaw Anakin. Not the way it's described, but Luke describes seeing a kind of a dancing of images, and he has seen young Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker, but then he's also seen that the face of that kind older man that he briefly saw without the helmet on the Death Star. So kind of a lot going on with Anakin. A little summary there. How did you feel about all this?
I really loved it. I'll say this, and I don't mean this to sound too grumpy. I really wish this was a big surprise in the book, but it wasn't. They released that excerpt, and we kind of knew it was coming. But you got to do what you got to do for marketing or whatever. I don't begrudge that at all. But I just kind of was like, oh, here we go. It's that part, and that's just the way it is nowadays. And that's fine. And by the way, when I say this, that's the way it is nowadays. Our reaction to that kind of stuff is different than 20 years ago. We would have been like, I can't wait to get the book with Anakin showing back up. It's just a different time. I get that. All of it was good. The half vision, half real trip. I was waiting for someone to say the way is shut. It was built by the dead, and the dead keep it. The way is shut. Like, it was some Lord of the Rings stuff, and I really loved it. And I really love that. I love the mail away figure of Sebastian Shaw showing up. But I loved. But again, you could just go, hey, we're going to do this, right? The ghost of Anakin Skywalker, the Force ghost of Anakin, shows up for his son. What a checklist moment. I really thought it was effective. Again, I read that part this morning and just was kind of moved by, but also amused by, Dad, you're speaking of cryptic sentences. I'd like to ask you more here, man. I loved all of it. I thought it was really effective. And then you tie it into, heading up to Simi Valley off the 118 freeway to go to Tython, and boom, I liked that as well. It was a fun connection.
Yeah, there's a lot that I love about it. I agree with you. This is one where it was cool to see the excerpt. It was amazing to know that this was happening. To me, it was like one of the most fun and interesting parts of the book, not just Anakin showing up, but Luke's struggle, kind of half projecting to Exegol and not understanding what it was. And I would have liked that to be a surprise, but that time has passed. We'll move on to the future, to the now. Yes. I really liked that it was, for me, enough clarity and enough ambiguity for Force spirits. I like that it was left open that was Anakin able to appear to Luke like this because of the unique properties of the Seeing Stone, that it is about power and connection and in reaching out, right? It's a way to call that even Luke doesn't fully understand. And it is that what allowed Anakin to appear like this, which for me would have some like fun. It's not cutting anything off from the future or from the past, but it suggested that there's more to still be understood, which is the way I like the Force Spirits stories to be understood. I also, in terms of like a little bit of something maybe slightly more concrete, I did like Anakin just saying, it took everything I can to bring you back. There's always that question of exactly how much can Force Spirits do? Where? Is it by choice? Is Yoda able to physically bonk Luke on the nose and summon lightning on Octo because of his connection to Luke? Is that something he could do at any time? The infamous line from Obi-Wan in Empire Strikes Back to Luke, if you choose to face Vader, you will do it alone. I cannot interfere. And we don't know if that's like by the spiritual laws of the Force or Obi-Wan going, that's your fight. So I like that all of those interesting ideas were kind of briefly touched on, where Anakin is like, you were in real trouble, and I needed to take this I, a spirit existing in a metaphysical way, had to take this action in this spiritual metaphysical plane to save you, but that's all I can do, and it took a lot out of me, kid. Yeah. No, even there's a line of Anakin faded again, but when he returned, he was only a dim shape, hardly more than a blue glowing outline against a clear blue sky. And Luke's go, but what do I do, Father? He's tried to, we talk about Force ghosts show up in the time of need, and
he literally, Luke is wanting those answers and he can't get them. And even though the advice is so cryptic, which I actually love that Luke is like, man, come on.
And I really like that the instincts is just like, follow the river of the Force in your instincts because they are one, right? It's some really great getting back to, hey, turn off your targeting computer and trust your gut, right?
Yes.
And seeing the way Luke conducts himself on Serpent Diamond Moon during the David Bowie fight song, there's a lot of just like he is really going with what is happening, right?
Yes.
He is not trying to control things. He is the serpents are coming and he works with it. So I feel like he kind of does take some of his dad's advice. What do you make of the Sebastian Shaw flash, which is a fun phrase to say? What do you feel like was going on in that moment? Why do you think that was there in the book?
I thought it was way more than a fun reference. It is a fun reference, and it is kind of playing with what we both see, but just that this idea, we don't fully understand the entire process of Force ghosting. We're getting some, getting better pictures of it, including with this book, but the Qui-Gon stuff and everything. So, what is Anakin struggling to maintain a certain form? The idea of George saying, it's going back to the moment he was redeemed, or that kind of stuff. I think it just adds more mystery that I don't know if I ever want fully explained. I liked it. I really liked it. I thought it was effective. Of just the energy it was taking to do this. And again, by the way, you're watching Luke, who half projected to a spot, who sees the cost that it can take, the toll of that, and we know where he's going in The Last Jedi. So I kind of like seeing that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, the Sebastian Shaw thing, what I like about it is how much is that Anakin or is that Luke, right? Is that Luke sort of trying to marry these two images in his mind, that these are both, these are pictures of this man, this human, this being, when he was on the side of light, and trying to kind of reconcile these two moments in time? Or is that Anakin like kind of wanting to show himself to Luke as he was in his prime, right? And but this vestige of this older man that he was showing up for a moment.
That's interesting. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so really fun to think about. Really love that. Any other Spirit of Anakin thoughts before we move on?
Now I do want this figure though. Can we get this version of it? A Sebastian Shaw Hayden version that you kind of, depending on where you turn it, you can see it.
I want an action figure where you squeeze the legs and the head revolves and it goes from Hayden to Sebastian Shaw when you squeeze the Force Spirit legs.
Love that. Yeah, but overall, again, it was a great use of Anakin.
Yeah, and I'm very, very excited with the still unconfirmed by Lucasfilm, heavily rumored appearance of Hayden Christensen in the Ahsoka series, if this is going to be flashbacks or dealing more with how Anakin exists within the Force. I'm very excited to see if those rumors are true. Move on to Rey's family. We get a lot of clarity and backstory there. We learn that young Dathan escaped Exegol because a kind Simong, Simyong, the monkey guys, helped Dathan escape Exegol. We learn that Miramir is a mechanical genius who meets Dathan, helping him fix Egradroids on her home planet of Hypercarn. We learn that Rey has a great-grandmother known only as Baba. We learn that the family did live on Jakku for a while, then fled, and then returned Rey and bought her protection from Unkar with Dathan's Sith Hex Charm necklace. But his Unkar plot makes really clear that's only gonna make me watch over her for a time, and then you have to come back for her, which explains why she ends up on her own. And then, of course, we are witness to Ochi murdering both Dathan and Miramir on the Bestun Legacy, dumping him into space. Their bodies being discovered by Lando, and then Lando and Luke on Net Folly in the Socorro system, which Wikipedia tells me is also AKA the Gold System, and giving them a burial. How did you feel about all of that backstory? What parts of it were resonant?
This was some of my favorite stuff, even down to a Simeon guy helping Dathan and him taking his name. And again, talking about it, I framed it as a bit of immigrant story, and I got the stories of my father hitting Ellis Island and them, him taking a different name. You know what I mean? Like to me, that kind of might be a personal connection. I don't know if other people felt that, but all that kind of resonated with me. But again, knowing that we're going to get this going in, right? Again, I think the names came out first. I forget whether it was an interview, press release, whatever. The names were out. So I was excited, but I did not expect to spend this much time with them and have them be actually fully formed and functional characters and learning more about it and leading up. And then even as I'm reading it, I'm thinking, man, is this going to go to the moments? Is this going to go to what we've seen in The Rise of Skywalker or even The Force Awakens vision? And we do. And I think this is one of those scenarios where we celebrate those times where Star Wars Publishing or other Star Wars material, even like Star Wars Resistance, seeing Hux's speech from a different point of view. I like that. I like kind of that reframing or additional context. And now those little beats, which I didn't have a problem with at all before, they were part of the fun mystery of Rey, and then seeing her parents and everything, and seeing them killed on screen, but now seeing it in the book, it has more of a punch. And I want to go watch those parts of the films, if not watch the entire films again, because of this. So I think it was really effective. This wasn't just let's try to put them in here and see what we can do with it. It really added to Rey's story. It made their story very real to me.
Yeah, I think for me, it just had so much emotional resonance to Rey's story that, we know that she has kind of locked some of these memories away because she was very young, because they're trauma, that she's left kind of confused, that she knows that there were people who loved her, right? But then they left, and why? And you can see why that's sort of the most fearful version of those fractured memories are what Kylo picks up on, right, in Last Jedi, and pulls forward and then spins in the most negative way. And then she reconnects, and it's her parents that give her strength. One of the sets of people who give her strength in Rise of Skywalker, I love her line back to Palpatine of my parents weren't weak, they were strong. They resisted you. They kept me away from you, and that took strength. So seeing that strength, right, was really great. So it was all resonant to Rey's story for me, but it's also just like, it was fun to get to know them as people and see what Dathan's young life was like, and living in this weird space of like knowing Palpatine's like, he's valueless to me in the moment, but he might have offspring. I'm not telling anybody that, but just the word is don't kill him. Let him scamper around. It explains to me how Dathan could get past the horror of where he started and find something better. So I really liked understanding him as a human. And for me, it is a little bit of like, hey, let's explain it. But I did frankly like Mir being a mechanical genius, right? And that does, explain a little bit of their presence on Jakku and filtering those skills down to Rey. That's all. That's all really fascinating to me. I think seeing since there is a little bit of like, okay, were they buried on Jakku? Where did they end up? Knowing where they ended up and knowing that people who cared and wanted to help and will go on to help Rey, gave them a respectful resting place. That was really powerful to me. Yeah,
it worked. And even just in terms of the horror that, Lando's feeling in that moment and getting so close and not close enough. And it was tragic. It was effective, haunting. It was all those things.
Yeah. And their real defiance of hope even is, Ochi in this utter madness, not even tactical, just right. Like that blade is just possessing him at that point. And they're just like, hey, we're going to die in the moment, but we know we won in the big picture because our daughter is safe and we are dying with hope, It give them a victory. Final thought in this is to quote Darth Vader, where is Baba? Is she safe? Is she all right? Is she still alive?
Hey, episode 10, Baba returns.
Yeah, please someone tell Rey about Baba. Any other thoughts?
No, it was big. It was a big part of the story, and I think overall, man, it really worked for me, and it's going to add to those films. That's a victory.
Yep. Speaking of adding to those films, Ochi's story. We get a lot of dagger clarity. We learn that the Sith Eternal have traveled from Exegol to give Ochi the blade and the mission to find Rey. Supposed to find her, then use the blade to find the Wayfinder and return her to Exegol. There have always only been 2 Wayfinders, we learn, clearly passed on in the Sith tradition. And we learn that by the end, Ochi is driven mad by the blade, and he dies with it on Pisana in the sinking fields in just total abject failure, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really like that part of the story. That it's just he's been driven mad by it, killed his own companions, he's lost the thread, right? Like he could still maybe try to use it to find Exegol, but he's so far beyond that because he's just been driven mad by it. Did that all track for you? Did it help that confusing part of Rise of Skywalker?
Yeah, it did. I as someone who hasn't spent a lot of time worried too much about it in Rise of Skywalker, maybe that's just my fault. I just take it as it is sometimes. I didn't feel I needed a ton of clarity, but it was fun. Ochi, I have an interesting relationship with Ochi. I really like him. I called him a prick earlier, but I like him being there. But like his appearances in the Vader comic are okay for me. But probably why I say it's okay, it's because he's kind of just annoying, and I think that's okay. It's okay to have that kind of villain, and so therefore, I don't know. I didn't have a lot of sympathy for him, but it resonated where he's literally sinking. Right, he's literally slowly dying. I guess I don't know. Make another Lord of the Rings reference. I did Gollum falling into the Mordor lava there as he's still chasing the ring that's destroying him. It worked. It kind of worked there. The little details are always fun, always interesting. But I think the big thing was the theme and him being driven mad by what he thought was the solution, not being able to let that go and not be able to see the truth of it. That was what was more powerful to me.
Yeah, no, I really agree with you. I think for me, the dagger stuff in the exact tracking of when did Ochi get it? What, did he go to Exegol to get it? And if so, how did he do that without, then why did he need the blade to find the Wayfinder? When was the blade made? All that kind of stuff is like, yeah, I totally get that is not super clear in the film.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, yes, to me, it's all tip of the iceberg storytelling. I didn't need to know the how. That's how I personally felt about it. But, talking to other friends, other fans who get distracted by those kind of things, I'm happy that this book is here to like clear it up. So if it's a distraction for you enjoying what I think are the great parts of Rise of Skywalker, then I'm happy to have this sort of clarity. So you're not distracted by the how, and you can just enjoy the what and the why. I really liked a lot of the buildup of what the Wayfinders are and how they are they're similar to, but different from the holocrons, that they're very unique, that there have only ever been two, building up to even, understanding some of Luke's sketches that Rey finds. All that stuff is really, really fun and interesting to me. In the dagger itself, I've always liked the dagger. And again, I think we talked about it recently. I think Rise of Skywalker is so much more adventure serial and old pulp and even Indiana Jones feelings, right? In the mystical artifacts. I saw a meme that did not like Rise of Skywalker, kind of detailing the plot, saying, okay, so the plot is they have to find a knife to find the Death Star remains, to find a compass, to find a planet. Somebody got paid to write this. And like, as we always say, if you don't like it and it doesn't work for you, there you go. It's your opinion. But for me, that's just like, that's the point. It's that kind of story. It's a pulp adventure serial story where you're on a quest and it hinges on a mystical dagger that loves to suck up blood. Yeah, that's why it's good to me. That's what I'm here for. So I really enjoyed spending more time with that dagger and all those descriptions of like the way it soaked up the blood and just told Ochi like stab more people. It's awful, but it's fascinating. It's a fascinating depiction of evil, right? To take something as wild as a dagger that's like, thank you, more please more blood. It's a wild, weird, frightening way to talk about the way anger feels, right?
Yeah, no, very effective. And even in the first mention of it, when Oshi's kind of like, that thing just drank my blood. Like what? I do like that. And yeah, I know what you mean. Sometimes we don't want to get too grumpy about it, but sometimes people say things like that to me about what you described about that meme. And I go, And that's the end of my comment back to that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. You explained it. I guess you just don't like it. The answer's there. You just didn't like the answer, which is that's a different discussion. So I felt that a lot with this dagger and this and the whole plot in this.
Yeah. And as always, if you don't like it, that's fine with me. I just think that, to me, the point is it is evoking these kinds of quests and these kinds of ancient artifacts and the fun of them and the terror of them. And I thought this book did a great job diving into those thematic ideas, those fun and interesting moods, and then also just did answer some of the how. And I think that is a really positive thing because hopefully it'll help more people enjoy the movie or give it another shot.
Maybe. Yeah.
All right.
Could very well be. We'll see.
Yeah. Any other Sith Eternal or Ochi thoughts before we move on?
No, other than I still like Exegol as a planet, as a location, as a concept. I still would love to see some more Exegol pop up in stories.
Yeah. Oh, and I like how much the book describes it as a truly awful nightmare place. Anakin saying hell has many names, and that sense of it being desiccated. There's nothing there. Everything has been sucked out of it. You know, all those descriptions of it are really, really powerful for you. For you,
yeah,
for me,
no, you're right.
And hopefully
you're right.
I was about to ask a you question and I slipped. Anyway, let's get into Luke's Jedi Academy. I think there was some great stuff that was fleshed out. The planet's name is Ossus. It is the same planet in Book of Boba Fett, where we see Luke and his R2's team of building droids beginning to build the temple. That is also seen later in the sequel flashbacks. I saw a tweet from lore master Pablo Hidalgo saying it was named Ossus in the Book of Boba Fett script. And then Adam Christopher had the opportunity to put it down on the page. So there we go. We know the name of that planet. We also learned that Luke is trying to follow the Jedi code of being aware of personal attachments. We see him be very warm and very friendly with Lando and not denying their closeness. There's some beautiful hugs.
Yeah.
But then we also see Luke gently correct Ben to call him Master Skywalker, not Uncle Luke. We learn that Luke is using the Padawan title. We see that very prequel image of older Jedi leading younglings on training exercises. So to me, it's like the philosophy of the Jedi was there in some of these appearances of Luke in Mandalorian Book of Boba Fett. But I feel like this book was sort of like a little bit more concrete of like, yes, he is learning the old ways and he is building his new academy in that image.
Yeah, no, I thought it was very fun to see, and to see it more fully formed. I loved the kind of the dance, again, Padawan title, but I certainly didn't make him cut his hair like it. I love the kind of dance there. And then, even how even it was framed like, well, this is how Ben likes his hair, and he still calls him Uncle Luke, and there's that kind of running up, butting up against him with some of those rules, but it's nice and warm and friendly at this point, and we'll see where that goes, obviously, and what that makes Ben susceptible to. So I loved all of it. Loved seeing it a little more fully formed, right? A little more. You mentioned the very young younglings, which is maybe some built-in tragedy in that, as we know. But I just liked it all because this is kind of something you'd wanted to see. When the deal was announced in 2012, we might get some new versions of Luke and Luke teaching Jedi, and we got some of that here. It was a nice taste.
Yeah. To me, it was just like a great taste. And I feel like every time we get a taste, I feel like I learn more. That Rise of Kylo Ren comic series, limited comic series that I talk about a lot. It's got some great stuff, including just kind of a little picture of like Luke's Jedi Academy, and that they're adult trained functioning Jedi who are going around the galaxy on missions doing things. And then this one adding that, and there's some very younglings as well. They're Jedi of different ages, right? It really opens that idea to that, even that Lucas idea that maybe Luke's found some older people. Is Quinlan Voss ever visit? That kind of stuff. Always just amazing to see Ben and Luke interacting. I think that there's big discussions to be had about Luke trying to follow the ways of the Order. I really like it because I think the spirit of the Order's ideas are understandable. The rule isn't don't love anybody or don't be close to anybody. It's like don't get possessive of them. And just like everything else we talked about with Luke, it's such a perfect example of like Ben's his nephew. He loves him. He wants him to feel loved and happy. but he also wants him to learn to be totally responsible, to stand on his own, to not be in Luke's shadow. Like you can see the good intentions that Luke has, that he's trying to find this balance. That's my take on it.
Yeah.
So I like seeing that. My main reaction is, we've talked about it forever, but I just deeply want a Luke's Jedi Order. I'd take books, but I'd love an animated show. Hey, if Mark Hamill wants to do it, great. Honestly, there's just like, I think that I'm coming at this from such a deep love of Clone Wars. Look at how much Clone Wars fleshed out that era, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And in my headcanon, there are many epic tales of Jedi Master Luke Skywalker, his Padawan Ben Solo, and other Jedi Knights of the new Jedi Order going around the galaxy, helping balance, helping people, having victories. It's not just about this slow march to tragedy. I think there's plenty of room for these stories, just like the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
All of the Clone Wars is a tragedy. But look at how much joy and hope and fun is in that animated series. And I just really want that for this era and these characters.
I'm with you on that. And you still have the dark shadows hanging over it all, and how close they're getting to, solving mysteries or even knowing that there's a mystery. And this book kind of does that too. So I'm all for that. And you could pick it up from here. You could do it before. Give me 3 seasons or whatever. Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah. That's one of my strong reactions. Happy for what we got here, and would love more. And happy what we got in Book of Boba Fett as well. Okay, so there's also a lot of the specific just Rise of Skywalker love. Dio, poor tortured Dio. I finished the book and was telling my wife just like a little bit about it, because she's probably not going to have time to read this one for a long time. So I was telling her, I was like, it's got that Ochia Bastoon guy, and it's kind of dealing with this. And she's like, is Dio in it? And I was like, I'm sad to report this.
Sad to report. It's sad to report that Luke at the end is kind of like, that was like a cone on a wheel. Well, I can't find the power source. Move along. Luke, come on, man.
But there were like a lot of little moments like that of like, not now, but the victory is set up to come, right? I was thrilled to see Dio. I'm just saying it was sad because he's you get to see the abuse that Ochi put on him.
I go back to what I said earlier about Ochi. I won't repeat it time and time again, but Ochi is that. Yeah.
Ochi is that. Of course, we also got Beaumont Ken in his early career getting interested in specializing in Sith artifacts. Got a lot with Enric Pride. He thinks and talking about Imperial remnants in the unknown region. They have him embedded with this other organization. Steadfast is his code name, which is fun since that ends up being the name of his Star Destroyer. He has a flask and dreams of having some death sticks. And then at the end, we learn he's got a coat of Ewoks.
Oh, what again? Beep, you Pride.
What a beep.
Yeah.
Beep.
Yeah,
there's our discussion about Enric Pride. Beep, beep.
It's so good because I think probably because I just love Richard E. Grant so much. I do like Pride. I actually really like him a lot in Rise of Skywalker. So I was thrilled to get more of him here. But then be careful what you ask for. It's like, oh man, that is brutal. It was vicious. And yet another, and I mean this in a good way, but yet another Imperial who was on Endor, right, hanging out in the shadows of Return of the Jedi. I like that. At one point, I got to imagine he and Moden Kennedy had some flasks and death sticks going, what are we doing? Oh, we got to this First Order. So I liked all that. And then Code of Ewok unbelievable.
It was really like, let's not just have the, in the book, sometimes we encounter a lot of Imperials or First Order officers who are just sort of like stiff, rigid, evil bureaucrats, right?
Yeah.
And I really, really appreciated that Pride was like, let's make him almost a mustache twirling villain. Like he is a bleeper.
Yeah.
But it's a bleeper with a lot of flair to it that makes you love to hate him. I would like just to read his burn book. And I know we've made that joke before about Palpatine, but you know that Pride's got opinions on everybody and everything.
Oh, well, he made a burn book to impress Sheev. Like, look, I made one too. But I like what you said there. That's a good lesson. If you're going to be a bleeper with flair. I guess.
Yeah. There's also discussion of the difference between clone versus Strandcast, which is other places, but that was fun to just have that concrete on page 174, 175. We talked about why we liked Pride. Anything else here in some of these specific shout outs to Rise of Skywalker that you liked?
I really like the use of Beaumont Ken. I because again, when I hear some of the criticism, I go, yeah, he said it. You want to know how Palpatine came back? Beaumont Ken said it. So I just have always liked the character, and to actually kind of take that and build back towards the start of his story. I thought it was fun. And again, we're watching Beaumont Ken, Lor San Tekka, and Luke Skywalker talking to each other. That was a lot of fun for me as a sequel fan.
Yeah, no, and I think what really sold it to me is it captured that character who's kind of like enthusiastic and curious, and wants to prove himself. A young man heading to this destiny of being knowledgeable on this subject. But the great contrast of this professor he looked up to is like, that's not a proper thing to study,
right?
Yeah. And you know what? Hey, maybe Beaumont Ken would have more details for us if the whole galaxy hadn't turned their head away and say, we don't want to think about it. It's not real.
Yeah.
Maybe Beaumont Ken could have been more specific for us in Rise of Skywalker if, his professor had been into him studying this.
Yeah.
A specific moment I like with Pride is him mocking Bastoon. Is that a place, a family? What is that even?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. You ready to move on to the mega list?
Absolutely. Let's hit it.
Okay, so this is not going to be anywhere near complete as Alex and Molly Damon of Star Wars Explains video, and I'm sure other people's videos. This is some of the stuff I picked up on, and we can stop to talk about any of the stuff that we would like to, Ken. We have the Lore and Luke using the compass from Pilio that they find in the video game Battlefront 2, and that is a way that they find a lot of the Jedi temples. It has all long been in Lor San Tekka's databank entry that he is a member of the Church of the Force, but really specifying that he is a historian, and that's his role within that organization. Anything there you wanted to chat about?
I just love that San Tekka clan, now featured prominently at times in the High Republic series, and like Lor San Tekka as well. So it was a lot of fun, and you and I and others, but you and I were right out of Rise of Skywalker. We're like, give us that animated series, Luke and Lor going around the galaxy, and I got a little taste of it. It was everything I wanted.
Yeah, it's really, really great. And I like their friendship too, right? It's showing that Luke is not this cold, isolated person, right? And also seeing Lore and like Ben have opinions about Lore, heightens their interaction in Force Awakens. Ochi mentions Lady Kira. That's great. And just a little shout out there. The mountain of Kyber on Exegol being tortured by the cultists is not only like great clarity for where did they get the weapons to power the Final Order's fleet, but it's also a lot of this ties directly from Vader comics. The Ochi burning directly from Vader comics. I'd like to just quick mention of Lasat bouncers.
Yeah,
that was a moment of hope. We know from the story of in Rebels that there was a belief that group of sentient beings had been wiped out, but no, they'd survived. So it was great to just hear they're bouncers. They're out and about in the galaxy, living life, having jobs. That was nice.
I love that.
Rebels fans. We spent a lot of time hearing about Lando's ship, Lady Luck, which was introduced in the Last Shot novel. Also from Last Shot, Lando mentions his Twi'lek lady love, Kasha Batine, who is also from that novel. Did you take it that Kasha is meant to be Kadara's mother, or is that open?
I took it as open. I took it as a little bit open. I don't know necessarily why, other than that just was a personal take from that, because that's a question that's kind of hung over it for a while after it was established in Last Shot,
Yeah, and then there was a thing about a place they'd all went together, and I was like, aha, and I was like, wait, no,
yeah,
I wouldn't put it beyond Lando to have had a relationship that didn't entirely work out with Kadara's mother, and so open for interpretation. Here's the big one. Shriv Surgov. Oh, we love Shriv from the video game Battlefront 2. Popped up in a lot of books since then. Yeah. Just a great, he's a steadfast rebellion, New Republic hero who's also just kind of a sarcastic grump who goes his own way too. He's He doesn't break the rules, but he bends them for buddies.
Yeah.
And then there's a specific mention of the level that you play with him and Lando in Battlefront 2. What are your Shriv thoughts?
I mean, I'm probably going to do a replay of that story pretty soon, just based on this alone. I just really loved it. Again, Shriv's popped up here and there, but to have him interact with Lando, have him be there for Lando, and have him be a connection that he goes on and sticks with the New Republic, I just liked it. And again, you could just look at it. It's not just a checklist thing. I just got the sense that like Adam Christopher is just like, great. I've been reading all these books and enjoying these stories for years too. Now I get to just pull it all together in one big story. And I just enjoyed a lot of those kind of moments.
Yeah, no, almost all of these things really do feel like they come from a place of like, that's a cool beat. That's a cool story. I want to incorporate those and kind of show respect to every, like you said, to every element of storytelling, certainly in the Disney era, but also obviously in the past as well.
Yeah.
Ochi dreams of hunting Depa Billaba, and he almost gets taken out in Mace Windu during the Clone Wars. That seemed like a dream thing. Obviously, the timeline was interesting there. Of course, the Tython Seeing Stone, we've already talked about that, but that's very cool to see such a direct connection to not just the place, but the purpose of that stone, right? And the reason that Ahsoka sent Grogu there, and knowing that Luke has found it and is sensitive to it, and it works. Yeah, and I love that.
Yeah, no, I love Tython being something new that shows up in the show and now becomes something old for us, where we can revisit it and get more of it in story and get more of the backstory. That's when I love when the new things become old in Star Wars.
Yeah, and speaking of which, then we get the TIE Defender ship from Rebels, Thrawn's pet project, right? And I believe Luke was like, I haven't seen that one, and Lando had to fill him in. So Luke hasn't watched Rebels. There you go. How did you feel about that? Shout out to Rebels.
I love, again, more deep cuts, and you could always hear Thrawn grinding his teeth on this should have been the project that won. And I love the use of that then.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a cool design, cool detail. Darth Noctis, the Lady Sith with a scimitar lightsaber that the baddie here, Kiza, with the Exum mask, ends up wielding that scimitar lightsaber. That is from a relatively recent book, the Dark Legends book by George Mann, which I have owned for a while. Haven't found time to read, but even those recent books are getting a shout out. Acolytes of the Beyond, of course, and the Yup Tashu, the one of the Emperor's sort of cultist figures that we see in Return of the Jedi. We don't actually see Yup, but he is of their kind and featured in the Aftermath book. It's really, really great to see them clarified. How did you feel about that?
I really enjoyed it. I thought the Acolytes of Beyond were so intriguing in Aftermath. And quite frankly, I probably thought there were going to be a little bit more into the storytelling. That was back in the day of when we just kind of, at times, understandably assumed that the books were just feeding directly into the movies we'd yet to see, right? And that necessarily wasn't the case, for better or for worse, however you look at it. But to have them back and have a little more explanation, and there's still some room to tell some of the stories. There is a difference in the described death of Tashu here versus what we thought we got, and I think I did see a comment of there's a reason for that. We just can't explain it yet. So I'm intrigued by that kind of stuff, and it was used really effectively. We'd spent time with Kiza before. That's one of my favorite little interludes when it's like, whoa, she just killed that dude. Like, what's going on? Oh my God. And for it to come back in a big way, I really like that. And I want more. I do want more of their storytelling. Vader's blade, was that actually Vader's blade? How did that factor into some of the other stuff? And just what it means to them to be hunting the past, collecting the past in order to keep the past in power. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of the view on it. And I think they're interesting and intriguing and valuable.
Yeah. I mean, I think dignitary, imperial dignitary is the word I was looking for. That was the, what they were called back in the day when you just had the action figures of like, who's scary older person
Yeah.
in purple with death lips, talking with Palpatine. What's that about? And to have them, fleshed out as like, oh, they're his kind of people that he could whisper to about these horrible arcane objects in the Sith designs and all that. And, tracking down, I think it's Minister Haydn, right? Who is involved in the fight, unearthing the world between worlds. So I always liked that about Tashu. So I really, really like this fleshing out. It feels like in retrospect, when the Aftermath books were written, Chuck Wendig was allowed to just like kind of throw a bunch of ideas out and say, we'll see where this goes, right?
Yeah.
And we've got to see where Cobb Vanth went. That thread was picked up. And then when Rise of Skywalker came out, we learned that, there's this Sith Eternal, there's this planet of the Sith, and everybody who lives there is a cultist. They've been there for centuries. Like, is that maybe some of the acolytes of the Beyond? Are they attached to the Sith Eternal? And I love the clarity here that, like, the Sith Eternal are they're a hardcore. They've lived on that planet forever. They're faceless, bandaged nightmares. Yeah. And the acolytes of the Beyond are teens who have been convinced by a creepy old man that you can get power by, doing some ghost hunting for me, basically, like go into this scary cabin and steal the scary necklace and it'll give you power, kid. I love now seeing that they're totally different things and both really fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And I had forgot that it was literally Kiza in Aftermath. So that's really, really awesome to make her the unwitting big bad of this book.
Yeah.
Moving on, we get Lando remembering Moment's mask from the comic book adventure. Yeah. Darth Moment's mask featured prominently in the Charles Soule Vader run, which I thought it was really great to mention that mask since this was a similar adventure.
Well, you would need to, like, it fit. It really, it's, other than a fun reference, it's also like, yep, he would think that. So,
yeah, these things happen. Yeah. Sometimes Sith Lords hide in masks. Yeah. Okay, here's a big one. Here's one I liked: the Cap 2 toy being featured. If anybody's not caught up with this, very quickly, back in the day, in the early '80s, Kenner wanted to find some ways to make some smaller budget toys. So they invented some vehicles that are not in the movies. This was always my favorite. I never had it, but it's my favorite. This weird little capsule that bounty hunters could use to grab people. It's such a toy for a kid idea that it's got a claw arm that grabs you and then it puts you in a little container. And it showed up here, some bounty hunters were after Lando and Luke, and Lando gets grabbed. How did you feel about it?
It was when I heard it described, I went, did he just, and then the name pops up and I went, that is it, right? Like I had to do a stop and do a search right then and there. Cause I'm like, I'm not dreaming this, right? Yeah, it is. No, I like it. It's fun. And again, that comes from this real celebratory spot. You live this stuff for so long. You're going to want to get that stuff in. It was a fun reference.
Yeah, for me, that was the one that was like, yes.
Yes. Yeah, right. Yeah, no, yeah, I get you. Yeah, I get you.
I don't care if this bumps me out of the story because it's just exactly up my alley of Star Wars nerdery. We had talked about these relatively recently for something and had looked at them to kind of pick a favorite. And this one was like, this is my favorite. This is one I want to find someday. Anyway, moving on, the droid crush that pirates that Ochi briefly uses, they're also from Vader comics. We get this character named Lena Graff, and she is a friend of Lor Santeca, and that's pretty fascinating because those are some High Republic names, right? Yep. The Santeca clan and the Graff clan are competing back in the day. So to see them being friends now was fascinating. What did you make of that?
Another fun reference, but also more storytelling to come. And now that we have that era, High Republic is so out there, so formed, and now with new stories, you can really connect back to it. I'm looking forward to more of those connections.
Yeah, and the same first name is Lena So, the Chancellor in the High Republic. Speaking of which, the pet of Comat named Sekhmet is a Targon, the same as Chancellor Lena So's pets in the High Republic. Yeah. That's fun, which leads us to one I would like to know your opinion on. For me, Cap 2 was the height of joy from a small reference. And this is one I saw coming a few sentences, and I was like, no, ow. Having a sense of humor about it, but it's a classic. Comet gives Luke and Lando some hot chocolate. How did you feel about this one, Ken?
I don't know the words. It's not conflicted. I think it's a high five for Adam Christopher here. I think it's a good job. The Timothy Zahn, Heir to the Empire, hot chocolate reference is one that is stuck in my craw for a long time. And I don't even know why, Joseph. I don't know why. Is it because it's too real world? Maybe. I love hot chocolate, so I should be happy that it exists in this galaxy and that Lando and Luke get to enjoy it again. I don't know what it is. It's never been one of my favorites. But we're so far removed from the early 90s now that for him to really go there, I think I would give him a high five, and then maybe that's where we leave it. And,
yeah,
and you're right.
No.
I feel hypocritical too because I'm like, Cap 2, that crappy Kenner toy, yay! A deep cut reference that has no meaning to the bigger picture, and I shouldn't be held up on it. Boo!
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think maybe that is the truth, is that some of these references just come down to whether you enjoyed them or not. I loved Cap 2. All of the deepest respect to people who love those Thrawn novels. I have personal friends who that was their gateway to Star Wars. They wouldn't be Star Wars fans without those novels. I have so much respect for those novels. I want to make time to reread them. So I am only speaking from personal experience. When I was so thrilled, I was so desperate for Star Wars. Oh, there's some new Star Wars. And I think it's right away at the beginning that that the spirit of Obi-Wan Kenobi appears, like, well, I can't be here anymore. And I was like, that's not right. I don't agree with that. And then Lando's like, here's some hot chocolate. And I was like, Star Wars is not of Earth. That's too earthy. That's not right. And I'm talking about grumpy, teen being so hungry for Star Wars. And then 1, 2 things that I was like, that's not how I imagined. All right, I'll keep reading. So hot chocolate has always been for me like, that's too just straight up Earth, and it's one of the things I'm most fascinated by. Of Star Wars fans all have, like, some people can't stand Dexter's Diner because it's just a 50s diner, right? Some people like, hey, I like Last Jedi until Poe says big ass door. You have friends who are like, when Finn says you got a boyfriend, cute boyfriend, like, what is this? Is this an 80s rom-com? What is this? Everybody has their different moments where that's too real world and they get bumped. And for me, hot chocolate is like, no. I can't put my finger on it, and it doesn't hold me up anymore at all. But I was like you. I like you too for a long time. But there it is. It's still alive. We're all drinking hot chocolate in this galaxy. It's still alive. I went on a long emotional journey, but like when it was just like, it was the build up. Adam Christopher was having fun with it. It was well done because it was this wink and nod of like, if you know this moment from that book, we're building up to it. Oh, this interesting fluid. It's described like this. It's called hot chocolate. All right, just a few more. We learned that Comet found hyperspace tracking research smuggled off of Scarif when she was with the Acolytes of the Beyond. This is great because that's what we hear Jen reference that in Rogue One, of course. There's a lot in the book that is about this technology called hyperwave signal interception, that if you have these different elements of a ship's signature, that you can tap into this Imperial scanning network and find the ship where it pops up. Luke kind of indicates that the Imperial's scanning network is beginning to fall apart, so this isn't going to work forever. But honestly, for me, this was one of those how questions that I did kind of like, that I had the headcanon of, some version of hyperwave signal interception is how Han and Chewie were scanning for the Falcon at all times in The Force Awakens.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, another little detail I've kept that's kept me up at night. But now I can sleep knowing that. No, I like that. Thinking that. No.
Good. Lando, of course, does the Calrissian Chronicles review we talked about, and of course, it ends with Lando doing this exaggerated story for a new chapter of audio-only Calrissian Chronicles. Any of those other moments that you wanted to talk about? Any that I know that there are some that I missed, but any that you want to touch on? No, all good. I do like the Lando one, restarting his podcast, because if we ever do get to a Lando series, I do expect and want that to be part of it. So, yeah. Yeah, I would be thrilled if it was just called the Calrissian Chronicles. It would be so great.
Absolutely.
So we talked about a lot of moments as we talked about themes in canon, but are there any other moments, whether they're just fun or impactful moments that we haven't touched on that you wanted to be sure to discuss or shout out?
We mentioned earlier, there's a lot of use of the word void and the sounds of silence and what that does. And I don't know, I've been doing a lot of hikes lately. And so it's like you get up to the top of the hill and there's silence, but man, that silence is loud because it's just you. And Kiza talks about the void and how it isn't silent. And then Lando heals in the silence. Luke faces a void. I just thought a lot of that imagery, a lot of that was pretty effective Star Wars storytelling and themes for me.
Yeah, no, I love that you're pulling that out, and that contrast of sometimes the quiet and the peace can be restorative, and sometimes it is like this horrifying absence. Yeah, it's really, really great to think about what makes that difference. Couple just specific scenes and beats that I really, really liked. I really loved the whole scene with Beaumont Kin, and that there was this sense of ego, right? That there's this desperation to find something and to have his dig go good. And then we see this really angry, entitled character, Miko Haswell, who's totally relatable to real life stuff, right? Like I'm better, I'm older, I don't get enough respect. And then he's the one who finds these shattered Sith crystals. And because of those understandable, relatable, but kind of dark side feelings, he's pulled in by the anger of the Sith crystals. So that's a really fun little scene and beat all by itself. But I just love this picture of Luke coming in and trying to help him. He tries to get through with him. He uses the Force on him to make sure that he doesn't hurt other people. And there's this great passage on page 101 where Luke is talking about holding Miko in place so he doesn't hurt people. And it says, such was the well of energy Luke could draw on that the slightest drop in his concentration could kill the man. Sometimes powerful was too powerful.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the fact that scene ends on Luke using the Force to calm and reassure him and kind of see into his soul and seeing like, you're lonely and bitter and you don't even realize how much you're respected. Let me help you feel that. Yeah. Just that little like that could have just been a short story about the Force, right? Totally disconnected. It ties into the themes, but I just love that whole section because it's Luke's like, I want to use the Force to calm, to reassure, to help, to defend. But then there's also this like, it's a responsibility and I'm so powerful if I drop my concentration for a moment, instead of holding him in place so he doesn't help others, I could shatter his ribcage. That was just a really interesting perspective to put you in Luke Skywalker's Jedi Master boots.
Yeah, no, especially at this point in his life. It's not just about pulling Star Destroyers out of the sky, right? And this is how you'd want to be aware of your power and perhaps use it. So yeah, no, great stuff. And it is also just be like how to navigate trying to pursue podcast success in the Star Wars
exactly.
world. Don't let yourself get bitter.
Yeah, in that scene where at the end where it doesn't go bad, Luke is able to help this man and reassure him. It ties really into me to what Grogu gets from his time with Luke, in the way Grogu is able to reach out and reassure the Rancor, and it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Just a couple other quick ones. So much great Luke and Lando stuff, but around page 145 where Lando has poured a drink for Luke and Luke doesn't take it, and they have kind of fun banter about Lando being like, you're still flying around that T-65, and like Luke's like, it's a classic, like just great banter. And then when Luke leaves and says, thanks for the drink after not drinking it, and then Lando slams it. I just loved it. It's just
and the two of them together, it's this really odd couple pairing that's been highlighted a lot going into this book by a lot of people out there, us included, and just them. There's a couple moments with Luke kind of looking around his ship, and Lando keeps it pretty clean. Which again, if your best friend is Han for many years, and you're in the and then Han's like, yeah, Lando had to ruin the ship before me. It was too clean, and I love the difference between them two. It worked really well, and we talked about it. It was just fun to have them together after all these years, and they're the two friends that didn't get to hang out that much.
Yeah, in talking about their closeness and the hug that Luke gives Lando when he just breaks down with the pain of it all, and like yeah, it's so much great stuff.
Yep.
There's a ton of other moments, but this podcast is already an epic one.
Yep.
So last moment I'm going to share is a very small one. I believe it's on page 164. Rey offers the last of her ration bar to her father.
Yes, I know. Yes.
One of the things that I love about Rise of Skywalker is Rey is so torn up and so much like Luke, afraid of her power, of will I accidentally use it in the wrong way? Will I hurt the members of this new family I've found? Will I hurt the galaxy? And torn up about finding out about her connection to Palpatine. But then also throughout the movie, we see again and again when she's really faced with it, she chooses kindness. She heals the vexes. She's kind to Dio. All the things we've talked about. And I love just seeing this little tiny ember of like, that's who you are. That's you got some well-earned anger because of the bad things you went through in life too. But in your heart of hearts, your spirit, you're such a kind person, Rey.
Yeah, it was such a Rey was a character in this. You know what I mean? She was an actual character for me, and you get to spend more time than I thought we would with the parents, as I said earlier. But even Rey, and it just made the ending even that much more sad. Really sad.
Yeah.
Really sad.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other moments, or shall we move on to our wrap up?
Well, you mentioned it a little bit. I said some of the stuff at the end. Just when I would encourage all of, if you're going to go through a reread of this, I would encourage all of you to focus on some of the stuff with Lando at the end and him breaking down and the guilt and the shame and the power, the pressure and all that stuff on him. And just we make a nap joke, take a nap, Lando, but like. The center himself, find himself. You met Luke holding him as he cries. Like it's pretty powerful stuff, especially from such a strong, almost stereotypical macho character in the '80s. Even though Lando was always more than that, I enjoyed all that stuff at the end with Comet, Lando, and Luke.
Yeah, no, it's really, really powerful, really important stuff. And I could feel it in my bones that Lando needed that time to take a deep breath, that space to just be and heal. And be honest with himself about the trauma he'd been through and heal. And, I was moved and jealous. I would like a week at Comet's.
Yes. I think I would too.
So any other Lando or Luke stories you're hoping to see either in book form or non-book form after going through this adventure? Did it leave you hungry for anything else in specific?
Yeah, look, I definitely want a sequel to this book, and that might mean you have two books because it goes in different directions. Lando trying to find his daughter with Pisana as his new home and base of operations. Luke going out to the galaxy trying to find this child, but the darkness is growing, and he and Ben have their relationship growing and maybe changing. I think absolutely this book was so hotly anticipated because it was sequel era storytelling in time periods that we hadn't explored yet, right? And there's so much fertile ground, so much. So I really do hope. I think this book is received well. It's sold well. It's a bestseller, right? I think so. It's a good sign of just maybe we get some more when the time's right to just explore these characters more. And Luke and Lando being so key to that era, I'm all for it in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, me too. I think for me, if an animated series is not in the works, is not possible, hey, wouldn't it be great to have a new canon series of Luke's Jedi Order in this version of the story? It would be really, really great. I would love that in any shape or form. I really feel like one of the big things that this book left me hungry for is the story of Lando's daughter, right?
Yes.
And that could be tied up in Lando and in Janna, heading out to find where Janna came from and encountering Kadara, wondering about where do Finn's passions lie? Is he on such an intuitive force user? Is he, is Finn going to Tython and reaching out to find every lost child? And who does Lando's daughter end up being, knowing that she is of Lando, but she clearly went through some tragedy? Like, I want to meet adult Kadara Calrissian very much in some form, whether that's a part of a Lando television show, whether that's the book Kadara, the future bestseller. I just want to meet Lando's daughter.
Yeah, no, and I know that there was some thought that Janna might have been planned to be his daughter, whatever it was. I'm really happy with what we got because I think that works in a different way in the movie for me, and this allows us to have more time to tell that story.
I really, really agree. I know this came out of all of this storytelling about the First Order targeting heroes to break them down to steal their kids specifically, while they also, stole lots of other children across the galaxy. I know that all came from early versions of Rise of Skywalker, but boy, do I love Jannah just being Jannah, and Lando's kindness just being kindness to a young person who doesn't know where she came from.
Yeah.
There wasn't room in Rise of Skywalker to give it the weight and respect that story deserved.
Agreed.
And I'm much happier to have it here in a book and in future storytelling.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree.
Any of the other new characters that you'd like to see again? I
tell you what, Kisa's an interesting character because we know where she kind of starts out. And this would be a story about going back, obviously. But I really believe with the Acolytes, and I think you described them well, but with Yuptashu and everything, there's definitely some things to tell there. I don't know in what form. It's not going to be its own show. I don't necessarily think it would be its own book. Maybe it's some comic series. I don't know. There's something tragic. There's something really painful, really sad. And just a different kind of version of a dark side story. So would love to see a little bit more of Kisa.
Yeah, that would be great. I would love to see Comat. I would love to get to actually see the story of how Luke helped her. What was the wedge in her soul that Luke was able to get in and help her, right? And also just going forward, right? We got a cool character with a blazing white lightsaber that's been purified. I would love to spend more time with that character. I thought she was really fascinating.
Yeah, well, and those two ideas, those they pair nicely, don't they? Kisa and Comat,
Yeah, absolutely. Sign us up for Kisa and Comat, the Acolytes of the Beyond story. We always like to wrap up with just a fun question. So, Ken, if there was a museum on Exegol, would you visit it?
No, man. Look, I'd be interested to see what's going on there, but I'm not going to the gift shop in Mordor either. So, no, I'm staying away. I like the planet and concept, but I'm not going there.
This is, for me, a virtual tour. I would be happy for there to be a display. I will watch at home from the safety of the HoloNet. Any final thoughts on Shadow of the Sith?
Big book, big review, big discussion here. I'm excited it's there. It's worth a revisit. I thought I was going to have a chance to do that. I started reading this book so early, I thought I was going to wrap it up and almost read it a second time. Then life just got in the way, but I still might. I'll put it on that list of dream, the Star Wars dream I have to reread some of these books. I don't ever have the time, but this is one of them. Glad it exists, and I hope it opens up a new era in sequel era storytelling.
Yeah, same thing. I hope that it is, visited by people who love the sequels. I hope it is read by people who have their doubts, and it opens up interest in exploring the themes and ideas of the sequel trilogy and answering some of the questions and making some of the ideas richer and all those things. And I would love to reread this book, but even if I don't have time to reread this book, I'm going to keep this one nice and accessible because there are a bunch of specific scenes that I would love to revisit, even just trying to kind of find the notes and the quotes. I got real distracted just reading specific scenes that are really, really powerful. So big thumbs up on Shadow of the Sith. Absolutely. And with that, Ken, where can people find us?
Hey, we're the Force Center podcast feed. We can be found on Twitter at Force Center Pod. We're on Instagram and YouTube as well. Yeah, we mentioned earlier we got a little lessons from Little Leia essay on there, more on the way, a live show coming. We rebroadcast the episode. So check out the YouTube page, subscribe if you want. Facebook page is Force Center Podcast. We're available on a lot of spots, including Acast, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and more. Merch is available at tpublic.com/user/Force Center. And you can support us directly at patreon.com/Force Center. You can follow me at Ken Napzok or go to my website, kennapzok.com. I got a couple of big comedy shows coming up. If you're down in San Diego for San Diego Comic-Con, I'll be at the American Comedy Company, part of the Mark Ellis and Friends comedy show on that Thursday night, 8 p.m. And a big one in Burbank soon coming up on July 30th. Details will be on the website. Joseph, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on all the social media. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is at Joseph Scrimshaw. Check out my sharing of my action figures that I'm not opening. I do open some, but I'm sharing the ones that I'm not opening. You can also go to my website, josephscrimshaw.com, for all my other comedy adventures. If you are attending the convention in my hometown of Minneapolis that is called Convergence in August, I will be doing a new stand-up show and some other fun panels there. So that is all on my website, josephscrimshaw.com, specifically on the live shows page. But for now, for myself, for Ken, for Beaumont Kin, this has been Force Center.